Town Board meeting of the town of Orangetown. Who do we have in the audience here? Okay. Well, Mike Mandel, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the town clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Vittori.
Here.
Councilman Johnson.
Here.
Councilman Tom Divany.
Here.
Councilman Dennis Troy. And Supervisor Brisket.
Present. All right. We have a few announcements before we get into our regular agenda, and then we have a couple of public hearings coming up also. So first, this announcement isn't on the announcements on paper, but this Saturday, I guess barring a monsoon, there will be a Nyack Halloween parade at 5:30 going down Main Street and I think Broadway too. Then on Saturday, November 10th at noon, Rockland County is unveiling its Gulf War on Terror Monument at Haverstraw Bay Park. I was honored to be on the committee for that since 2015. We're unveiling that at noon on Saturday, November 10th. Sunday, November 11th, 10 a.m. is the Veterans Day tribute for Orangetown at the Walkway of Heroes at the intersection of Leicester Drive and Independence Avenue at the monument. Sunday, November 11th, 12 is the Veterans Day Remembrance and Veteran of the Year ceremony. That's at the Rockland County Courthouse. John Layton will be the County Veteran of the Year. And then again, also on Sunday, November 11th at 5 p.m. is the Friends of the Orangetown Museum's annual dinner, which features Rendezvous with Treason, a historic presentation by the Sons of Liberty, Living History at the 76 House in Tapan. If you'd like tickets, please call 398-1302. We have some public hearings scheduled for the upcoming period of time. Today we have two, one for a zoning map change for HNA commencing at 8:05, and then one which will probably start just whenever that's done, but technically 8:15 for a Watercourse diversion permit for Sunrise Lane in Pearl River. Then on the Thursday meeting, November 8th, this is a special town board meeting. We ran into a situation where we discovered that for years the town's calendar for the budget has been a little bit off from what's mandated by the state. It was too late to change this calendar for this year, so technically to comply, we're calling a special meeting. We're going to call to order, open the hearings on the budget, and then continue them to the next regularly scheduled meeting per our calendar. So there'll be a special town board meeting on the 8th of November at 4 p.m. That'll take no more than 10-15 minutes to continue those hearings for the Orangetown Libraries, the Blauville Fire Protection District, and our budget. Then at the workshop meeting on the 13th will be those three hearings again, followed by a traffic flow adjustment for Pearl River Train Station, which we'll be setting today, and an amendment to the code regarding taxi stands. And then again, November 27th, we have town board meeting with public hearings on a helipad for Bloomberg, which we'll be setting today, and a proposed local law for the noise code, which will also be set today. Moving on is public comment. For public comment, you have 3 minutes. If your timer goes off, you should please wrap up your sentence and we'll get on to the next person. Is there a sign-in sheet? I don't have a copy of the sign-in sheet. I think it might have been forgotten there. Okay. We're gonna just wait this one out. It's gonna be kind of an awkward pause.
While we're waiting.
Yes, Paul.
The players at the Tapan, the Man's Barn, are having a play this weekend. Saturday night at 8 p.m. and Sunday at 3 p.m. Sunday, you can buy a combination ticket and get a brunch at the 76 House, and the play they're doing is Rumors, a Neil Simon play. It's very funny. So two more performances and then it's over.
Great. Thank you, Paul. I'm glad we had the break there. Okay, we have a few people signed in for public hearing, for public comment, and I just want to make clear for anyone who signed in, this was the sign-in sheet for open public comment. There's additional comment for the public hearings today, so if you intended to sign in for public hearing and you don't want to do the public comment, just raise your hand when I call your name and say it's the next one. Mike Mandel of Pearl River, you're up first.
Yes. Good evening, Supervisor Day and members of the Town Board. For the record, my name is Michael Mandel, a resident of Pearl River. And if you haven't gone over to the Man's Barn to see the play, you're missing a great play. Rumors is terrific. I saw it on Sunday, and if you can get out there and support the local players, it'd be great. So, thank you. Regarding item number 18, the electric charging stations. If, I was looking at that and thinking about it. If other than non-electric vehicles are permitted to use the spaces, it might deter owners of electric vehicles. If an owner of an electric vehicle pulls into the downtown business district, wants to charge this vehicle while using a local business, and we hope that these charging stations, besides being environmentally sound, would also bring in business to the area. If they come in and see that these spots are filled by non-electric vehicles, after a couple of times and you see it's not available, you're not going to come back. I think an ideal way of doing it, I may be wrong, but that's my opinion, is a 6-month trial period where those 2 spots can only be used by vehicles charging. If it doesn't, at the end of the 6 months, you can take a look and see how many vehicles used it. Is it, or is nobody using it? And at that point, you can always change it. But once you permit something, as in the case of anybody can park there, it's going to be extremely tough to stop them from parking there. So I think if, just take that into consideration when you're looking at that. 6 months doesn't hurt anything. It's a trial period, and it can be put right in there and reevaluated at that point in time. There are enough spots in downtown. Secondly, item 38, the text certs. In the past, the school district was always listed. All of a sudden, I guess in the last 6 months, the school district is no longer listed. Which school district is it? Is it South Orangetown or Pearl River? I couldn't tell. I don't know the address. I know it's on the border between the 2 districts, so it would be nice if they were listed again. I would appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Hold on. All right. Next, we have Carol Baxter, Palisades.
Good evening. Before I say my little thing, I'd like to make a couple announcements at the Palisades Community Center. This weekend, we have lots of things going on, and one is our annual antique and collectible sale, and that is raises money for the renovation projects at our Palisades Schoolhouse, which is built in 1870. And we also have our annual family fun, Scarecrows and Pumpkins. Kids can come and build scarecrows on the lawn and carve pumpkins, things like that. So that's on Sunday. And then we have our 11th annual Winter Coat Drive and Food Drive and Pet Supply Drive. So starting next Sunday through November 4th, bring your coats, your boots, your hats, anything for infants to adults. And we'll make sure that they go to people, and they give these coats away for free. So please do that. I'm here actually to, I know that many of the board members have heard this for 10 years now about the Route 9W traffic issues. We are so frustrated in Palisades. In April, Ellen Jaffe was able to find $650,000 to make the improvements to the intersection, which were approved by the DOT, and we are still waiting. And every day, there are near misses at that intersection. And we asked for the speed limit to be lowered to 35 last week. The speed limit's 35 in New Jersey. Coming down the hill, it was 45. Then it was 35 as the recommended speed. They lowered the speed limit coming down the hill to 40, and then they put a sign, 45 miles an hour, a brand new sign right at the intersection, which means when you come through the light, it gives people permission to floor it, to go through probably the most dangerous part of Route 9W in front of the very popular market, which is swarming with bicycle riders during the summer and even into the fall. We're not going to get rid of the bicycle riders. They're there forever. But 35 miles an hour from the New Jersey border, coming all the way down to, say, HNA, would make it very safe, and we are really upset. And thank you for the board's support, and we really need you guys to fight for us. And I know Ellen Jaffe is going to be fighting for us next week. There's a meeting. So this has got to be done. It can't wait any longer. There's a fatality waiting to happen. So it's been since 2008 we've been fighting for this. Thank you for your support, and I hope you'll fight for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Esther Baitler from Spark Hill.
Good evening, Supervisor Day and Town Board members. My name is Esther Ann Baitler, and I'm a consumer who lives at Kathy Lucan in Spark Hill. I would like to know, Chris, why you and Dennis are trying to take credit for my sidewalk when you haven't spent any money on it. This is truly profound. I don't understand it. I don't have a street named after me. Chris, and you keep saying that, Chris. I have a sidewalk that's called Esther's Way. I want to make this perfectly clear. I also don't like it when you, Chris, and Dennis poke fun of me about my having a street named after me. I only have a sidewalk. It's inappropriate for you to sit there in public and laugh and poke fun of me. That's not acceptable. It's not right. It's not fair. I think you and Dennis owe me an apology, Chris. You weren't even at my dedication day. This is embarrassing. I don't know why you're trying to take credit. And you keep saying, you and Dennis, that you're spending money on my sidewalks. That's just not true. I don't understand you guys. I resent how you treat me. Without me, without Venture, you'd have nothing to go to look at. As a matter of fact, no one's allowed on the property unless you have a tab saying you work for Venture. And I just think for you guys to sit there and laugh and poke fun of me is truly horrible. It's an embarrassment to me and my family. Why do you guys do that? Can you answer me, Chris?
When your time is up, we'll respond.
It's really hurtful. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't have a bus shelter or street lights if it weren't for me, because I run Venture. It really, I'm embarrassed that you guys think it's funny to poke fun of me. I think that you and Dennis should really think before you act in an inappropriate way. I don't see anybody else on this board doing that. The other thing I'd like to bring up, our floodlights are not working. Somebody on this board, not you, Paul, but Chris and everybody, should speak to O&R and get this done. Enough is enough.
Thank you, Esther. I'm just going to address some things Esther just said first before we move on. Esther, no one up here has ever made fun of you. You can sit down, Esther.
Chris.
Esther, please sit down.
Why don't you admit
Esther,
the
please sit
truth?
down. Please sit down. Okay? Please sit down. Thank you. No one has made fun of you. last meeting, where there was public comment, you accused the board of not supporting or liking Venture at length. And we all replied, stating that we do, and giving many reasons why we respect you and Venture. We weren't being, we were laughing at the fact that anyone would accuse us of not supporting Venture to the degree that it's been supported. And no one is laughing at you, and that's enough, Esther. You can stop talking over me now. Stop, please. No one has insulted you. I think you need to understand that everyone here supports Venture, and everyone here respects you, and move from there, okay? But I want to make that perfectly clear. I want to make it perfectly clear that what was funny is the idea that anyone would think we don't support Venture to the degree we have. That's funny, and that's it. And that's it, Esther. That's it, Esther. That's it, okay?
I'd just like to add, I think one of the reasons that Dennis laughed was he's been a board member on Venture for 25 years.
Right.
So to accuse him of not supporting Venture is disingenuous. He supports that organization. He always has. He's been on that board forever. It's a cause that is close to his heart. So for him to be accused of not supporting Venture, and he's not here tonight, so I will say it on his behalf, is unfounded, and, you know, it's an unfounded statement, and that's why Dennis laughed, because Dennis has supported Venture for the last 25 years, and I don't think anyone else in this room would think that and anyone on this board would think that he doesn't support that organization.
That's about summarized it, yeah. Moving on, we have Milbury Polk of Palisades for the 9W speed limit.
Thank you very much. My name is Milbury Polk. I live on 9W, right across the street from the market, and I want to support Carol's remarks that almost daily there's screeching tires, there are deer running across the street, there are bicycles, and the cars are speeding. It's a really dangerous, dangerous place, and there already have been some accidents there, and I know that there are going to be more. So I thank you very much for your support of this issue, and hopefully it can be resolved soon and lower the speed limit. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble reading your name. Is it Dennis? Denise, sorry. Hoyer? Hi, sorry. They don't teach script in schools anymore. It's my fault.
Okay, I'm Denise Hogan. I am the coordinator for Power Against Tobacco, which is part of the Tobacco Control Program, and it's also a program of the American Lung Association. Since 2014, when Courtwood Village had the fire, I have been trying to get in touch with the board members to present to them a possibly going smoke-free. I have had no luck getting, I have emailed members on this board, members on that board. I have called the office several times, left messages for Mimi. I've done that in 2014 and stopped, and then just picked it up again in the spring, since it is the norm now to have smoke-free apartments. And no one has returned any emails or any calls to me. So perhaps you could give me a suggestion how I could move this forward.
We're going to address it at the end, but if you had anything else.
No.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Denise. I'm sorry about the name there. I didn't realize it was
That's
you.
okay.
And then Robert Tompkins of Pearl River.
Yeah, Honorable Town Supervisor and board members, as you know, I'm running for town clerk, receiver of taxes. This has nothing to do with that. What I'm referring to is the grant of $250,000 for traffic signal replacement on Central Avenue and William Street at the intersection in Pearl River. As you know, I was on the board of directors for the Pearl River Chamber of Commerce, and I was on the beautification committee. And what we did on the beautification committee is try to remove the utility poles on Central Avenue. One impediment to that was that traffic signal, because the poles were unstable and had to be stabilized by other utility poles. What I'm hoping is that this grant has a new pole for the traffic signals, so that they no longer need to be supported by the other utility poles. Once that happens, then they could remove those utility poles and put them behind the buildings. The other comment has to do with the digitation of Orangetown records and digital records management. I think that's an excellent idea. It's very, very positive. When I was an accounting manager in California at Culver City, we had an active digitation program and really helped in terms of reducing records, but also the physicality, the physical records. And it's really quite a challenge to find physical records if you're not super well organized. And it does take space, and year after year, it just grows. You have more physical records year after year. So this is a very, very positive program. I hope that it's budgeted. I've noticed that this doesn't take effect until 2019, so I hope there's sufficient amount budgeted to do this. And I applaud the town board, particularly with the goal where you're trying to digitize all the existing records within 5 years. That's very important. Where the records are placed presently, there's always that risk that during a hurricane or something like that, where you may have your roof leaking and damage those paper records. So this is very positive, and I applaud the board for proceeding. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who did not sign in who wants to speak? And just to be clear, at public comment, not the subsequent hearing. Public comment, which is anything. Yes.
All right, Supervisor Day, members of the board, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
I'm here to address my residence where I live, and there's a town tree that is taking up my driveway, which I've called the highway department over 9 years ago to lift it because it was lifting the driveway, because I was replacing one, they wouldn't. Since then, it's been lifting a new driveway, and they're getting called back to cut it down, and they're refusing, and I don't know why. And just the other day, they came by my house to cut down a tree further from me that's supposedly dead, but they won't pull up one that's destroying property that I had just put down a new driveway. So I'm hoping that you can look into this and see that the highway department can cut it down before it does any more damage. I mean, unless you want to pay for a driveway for me.
If that concludes, or
Yes,
okay. And what's the address again?
13 Lester Drive, Orangeburg, New York.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Is there anyone else who wanted to talk during the public comment on any topic near and dear to their hearts? Okay. Seeing no one, do I have a motion to close public comment? Councilman Valentine, second by Councilman Divney. All in favor? Okay, so just to touch on a few of the things that are brought up, and then I'll turn over to anyone else who has some other responses. Mike Mandel, good point regarding EV stations. I guess it's kind of a, pick one of the two. Either way, we're looking at it as kind of a test period because that's why we did it by resolution and not by town code change for setting the rules. My thought process, and I think where we were with putting it at anyone at the beginning, is we don't know how many people have electric vehicles, and the presence of the charging station alone is kind of a deterrent to people without them from choosing to park there. But we don't want to penalize someone for being there and reduce the parking if it turns out they're sitting vacant all day. I get your point with the experiment, let it open for a little while, see what happens. We'll pick one. I just don't know if either is necessarily the best option. It's just we got to pick one and figure it out from there. But thank you for the input on that. Tax Yari, you're right, it wasn't included in that resolution. We'll make sure in the future which school district is added into that. Carroll and Millbury, regarding the 9W intersection, as most folks know, we did pass that resolution back in, I think it was April, requesting that the state lower the speed limit to 35 from the border up through H&A Palisades. We also said we would enforce that speed limit with police special traffic enforcement and everything. And then we also were told we had the money, and the DOT came down and said that they'd improve the intersection. It seems like, as usual, the DOT has been moving a little bit without informing anyone. It's happened before. And we will recirculate around along with Assemblywoman Jaffe. Lowering it to 40 is a step in the right direction. It's a huge step, really, because they haven't lowered anything. But then going right back up to 45, it just doesn't make any logical sense. And certainly not at least telling us what's going on with this intersection and why it hasn't started yet after a whole building season. If there's a delay, yeah, fine, just tell us what's going on. So we'll figure that out. And I apologize. We're doing our best here, but you know how the state can be. Denise Hogan, And we've been talking about this in the past regarding the no smoking at Courtwood. Rob, I have a question. We're named on the insurance policy for Courtwood, right? In some way we like underwrite their insurance, I think, because we don't have control over them. Like as a governing body.
Are we an additional insurer?
Are we?
No, we underwrite the bond,
So we underwrite the bond, not the
or,
insurance.
or guarantee the bond, I
We
should say.
guarantee the bond. So I guess the
underwrite
idea
it.
of like banning the smoking in the apartments, we can't make them do it. but
That
we
would
probably
have to
some
come from
influence
them,
on it.
really, right, because they're a separate entity, it's their property, you know.
Right.
That's something that they'd have to take care of in their bylaws, really.
Would it, well, Dennis is the liaison, unfortunately, so we'll make sure that Dennis gets this and brings it over to them as something that they can talk about at their meeting, as, because it isn't, I think, you know, with modern liability and with the fact that it did burn down at some point, you know, it's not like it didn't happen, this isn't theoretical. It would make sense for them to consider it. We can't make them. I don't think that's what I was looking to see, there's an angle to do it, but apparently not. Yeah, an audience would be good, someone to reply to you would probably, from them would probably be good. I know we've talked, but. Yeah, and they're not really, I don't know where you even find when they are. Is it on the website? We'll talk to Dennis about it and we'll get it for you, okay? And I'll link you up with him. Robert Tompkins, you know, you're right, digitization has been very important here. Rosanna Srager, our current town clerk, is doing an amazing job of digitizing the records and of taking advantage of the process. She's really been leading the way on it. She's worked with our IT department to get all of her forms into digital process. She's helped us choose a software by which we're going to be able to further digitize. She's ready to actually turn this whole town board meeting over into fully electronic format and is then prepared to start tackling the backlog of paper once we turn off the flow of creating new paper. So, you know, yeah, she has done an amazing job doing this, and I think you're right, she really has done an incredible job of ensuring that we're moving to the 21st century as town clerk, so I'm glad she's here doing that. Then the driveway tree issue, Jim, I think we'll let you, you probably don't know right off the top of your head, so we'll talk tomorrow or something about it and figure it out with that one. Anything else regarding public comment?
Just quickly, to the people about 9W, we absolutely support lowering the speed limit to 35. The Traffic Advisory Committee has sent letters to the state saying that they agreed, as did the town board. But the state, you know, moves at its own pace and does its own thing, and they don't even talk to us. As you could see from, they put up the solar field in Pearl River and never even told us. It was just there one day. And we started getting calls on, what are they building there? None of us knew. Our building department didn't know. And then we found out after they started putting solar panels down what was going on. So I absolutely, and I'm sure everybody on the board does agree that it should be 35. That is a dangerous stretch. Absolutely. I drive up and down there all the time, so I agree with you, 100%. I did try to explain to Esther the difference between the LED streetlights and the floodlights. The streetlights are on the front of the pole, which the town owns. The floodlights are on the back of the pole, which Orange and Rockland owns, and somebody rents. So somebody's paying a monthly fee on it. It's either LIU or Camp Venture. And those lights are going on and off. The bulbs are cycling, so they need to be maintained by Orange and Rockland. Really, normally what happens is the person paying the bill would make that call because you can hold back the funds. But I'll drive by and I'll try to get the pole number and the street light number, and I'll try to make a call. I don't know if I have as much pull as the person paying the bills, but I will at least make the call.
Oh, good. So little confusion. Okay, I think that was the poll number.
No, that was
Oh, that was
Orange
the
and
phone
Rockland's
number.
number.
Okay, good. All
Thank
right,
you,
so now
Esther.
you know. I'm sure you know already, though, given your line of work, right, Paul? Yeah, if you can get him on the phone, yeah. All right, let's see. We have 3 minutes before we can start the public hearing. So let's see if we can knock out a resolution or two and save those 3 minutes there. So we're going to go to item 12. Wait, nope, sorry, item 10. Is that 10? Is it 10? No, it's 8, I think, right? Yeah, 8. Item 8 on the agenda, page 8, coincidentally. This is the resolution to set the date for the public hearing for the proposed change regarding the traffic flow in front of the Pearl River Train Station. That's going to be, again, November 13th at 8:15. Do I have a motion to set that? From Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Divney. All in favor? All right. Number 9, this is a declaration of intent for lead agency plus circulation of it to our Planning Board, Traffic Advisory, and Metro North. Actually, that should say New Jersey Transit, not Metro North, as the third item for being circulated, since that's their property. Is there a motion on number 9? Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Divney. All in favor? Great. 10, resolution to set public hearing for the town code regarding taxi stands. Just this one popped in from what came up in our last meeting. There is some stuff about taxi stands in there. They exist in our code, but there's no like rules about them in there other than that they exist and only taxis can be there. It doesn't say what a taxi is even, so that's where we're going to be at. So is there a motion to set the public hearing on that for 8:25 on the 13th? Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Patari. All in favor? Great. And then a secret declaration and lead agency and circulation for that same resolution. Is there a motion? Councilman Divney, second from Councilman Patari. All in favor? Set the date for public hearing for the Bloomberg helipad at November 27th at 8:05 p.m. Is there a motion? Councilman Patari, second from Councilman Valentine. All in favor? This one does not have a secret or circulation because we are not lead agency on it, just to clarify. Resolution to authorize funding for the Pearl River Chamber of Commerce holiday lights. Councilman Divney, second from Councilman Patari. All in favor? Resolution to accept 2 grants, one for the traffic signal replacement and one for purchase of our large-scale scanning for digitization. Is there a motion? Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Patari. All in favor? Resolution to approve the agreement with mobile parking payment services with Park Mobile for mobile parking payment services in downtown Pearl River. Yes, Rob.
Either we don't vote on it or it's subject to, I don't have a final
We have one last
agreement
thing
with
in
them.
that agreement, so could we do subject to?
Yeah, subject
Actually,
to-
it already says, subject to review and approval by town attorney's office prior to its
It does,
execution and
so
effectiveness.
I'm fine with that.
You covered
because-
yourself already. All right,
Just
is
in
there a
case.
motion on this one? Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor? All right. We're going to not do this one so quick, and it's 8:05. Perfect, save there. Next one was going to be the parking map. All right, so we are ready to get into the first public hearing. Do I have a motion to,
Continue.
oh, hold on, sorry. I got my script that you gave me wrong.
This is continued, don't forget.
Yes, motion to continue the public hearing for the H&A Palisades premiere. Councilman Batari, second from Councilman Valentine. All in favor? All right, so first we're going to have the applicant, who will also get the same 5-minute timer as everyone else after our last presentation last week. 5 minutes. We had a long one last week, Lino, so you're suffering from that.
I'll be as quick as possible.
You're good.
Supervisor Day, members of the town board, council, staff, my name is Lino Sciaretta, partner of the law firm Montalbano, Condon and Frank. I'm here on behalf of H&A, the Palisades Center. With me this evening, I have Jesse Coakley from Mazer Consulting, rather, and my partner, Brian Quinn. Brian was instrumental with respect to the planning board application where we had the expansion of the 100-room facility for this property, which was approved last year by the planning board. Real quick, what H&A is looking to do, we petitioned your board back in July to change the zoning of this property from LO to OP. The biggest difference in that is OP permits a hotel use, and that is what H&A would like to make this property. It's already a premier conference center. Just by way of history, this was the former IBM conference center site, training facility. Then it was subsequently turned over to Dolce and now to H&A. But it's a beautiful parcel, it's 106 acres, and what H&A would like to do is, instead of just having this as their conference facility, also open this up to a hotel use. And again, they can't do that right now in LO because it's not permitted. So at the last meeting, the biggest difference, again, I think we talked about this, was that the LO and the OP, the biggest difference is that hotel use is permitted in OP. After further discussions with staff, council, there were some other issues with respect to the bulk table. And for example, in OP, you're technically allowed to have a height of 94 feet for any structure. Another provision in the OP that was different than LO is that you can have a convenience store, i.e. like a 24-hour mart, 7-Eleven. So in going back and forth with that, we in HNA, we would agree, and I believe you have that in your proposed resolution tonight, in any zone change, should your board consider it, we would limit the height to what is currently permitted under the LO, which is, I believe, 50 feet. And we would not have, our intention in HNA is not to have a convenience mart or a type of 24/7, retail establishment on site, like a 7-Eleven. That's not the intention. Really, the idea here is just to turn this into a world-class conference and hotel facility. So that's really why we're here tonight. Again, this is a continuation, and that pretty much sums it up.
Good. Thank you. Any questions before we get to the public portion?
Question for Rob. Rob, we talked about this before. There's a provision here that the applicant owner agrees that incidental convenience shops shall not be permitted at the property. What would be the definition? Because obviously the town board, if we're gonna pass this, want a hotel go with there, I mean, there's a difference between a 7-Eleven going there and you having a sundry shop on the first floor because you forgot your toothpaste, your toothbrush, shaving cream, bag of chips, a soda. So to me, this could be saying they can't have a sundry shop, or it could mean that you can't have a freestanding shop like 7-Eleven or a Quickie Mart. But I don't know based on this language, I don't know what we're allowing, we're not allowing.
Right. Well, ultimately, and I was checking for Jane, but ultimately it's a call for the building department. But my interpretation of incidental means incidental, and it's, as you described, more of it's like a sundry shop, so that somebody wants to buy a newspaper or, a soda or, pack of gum or something, something that it's incidental to that use, such that somebody driving past on 9W is not going to drive in for a pack of gum or a newspaper. That it's just not convenient. It doesn't make sense. A standalone 7-Eleven, it would not be permitted, or, Quickie Mart or whatever, would not be permitted, in my opinion, as incidental. Again, we confirmed that with Ms. Slavin, but to me, as on a hotel
She's giving
use.
a thumbs up.
Oh, good. Okay, she's saying yes.
She's here.
For the
On the
record,
record
she's
with a
giving a
thumbs
thumbs
up.
up.
So how can we allow this in the hotel and not allow a 7-Eleven or any other type of store outside the hotel?
I think my take is, and again, if Jane wants to come up, is if somebody came in for a 7-Eleven, it would be denied on the basis that that's not an incidental, I want to get the exact wording.
Shall not, incidental convenience shop shall not be permitted on the property.
Right. Well, that was put in as one of the conditions may be. In OP, it says incidental convenience shops. It's really one very minor difference between OP and the LO. It says incidental convenience shops and, like cafeterias and places that, I'm sorry, I'm done. But places that,
I paused it like
sorry,
3 times.
I'd like to keep going.
Does someone have another remote? It keeps on pausing. I don't know. Go
But,
on.
so I think that the way that it's intended, it seems to me, was it's more of a sundry shop and not for a standalone 7-Eleven. So the supervisor and I met with some community leaders on this. That was a concern of theirs about the incidental shops. That was the really only difference. So we were kind of saying, all right, if you want to take that out, we'd throw that out there. But, you're the board. It's up for your consideration. Maybe hear from the public on that issue. It's really your call on whether you want to take that out.
Is there any way we can allow them to have a small thing where they just sell sundries inside the store to the residents of the hotel?
It may be, I think the sense I get is
That's what
that,
it allows right
is
now.
that basically incidental,
Yeah,
incidental by interpretation
Shall
of,
not be permitted.
well, no, but
yeah, they're trying to.
the new zone, all right, so the LO zone
So I
permits
wanna allow
incidental
that and
food
stop
use.
everything else. How do I
Correct.
do that?
It'd be similar
Yeah,
to
go
like
ahead,
the
Jane.
hospital. Same thing, when you go into the hospital to visit a relative, you can stop at the store when you come in and get what you need. So the same thing, any hotel you stay in, think about it, if you're traveling, they always have that small shop. So we can define that and limit it to that.
But it's
As
defined
an
in the zone already, is
incidental,
that, or
as
no?
an incidental use.
If the zone already says incidental food and dining establishments, which both zones say already, LO and OP both say that, and OP says and incidental convenience shops, does that mean in incidental convenience shops, by definition, it inherently means the type we're just talking about, like an internal gift shop type thing in the hotel? Like,
That's the way I would interpret it. I agree with Rob's explanation.
okay, so
So
let's,
if we took that out, they're allowed their little store inside the hotel, but they're not allowed anything other than that.
Right, they wouldn't be permitted
They're
a
not-
big sign outside welcoming the general public to
they
come
wouldn't be
in
allowed
and-
like a shopping center in there, like a Zara and like an Apple store and stuff like that?
No, that wouldn't be considered incidental.
Okay. I would like to see what the folks in the, I mean, obviously, I can
Yeah.
see a lot of residents of
We'll wait.
Palisades here,
Right. We'll
but that's
let
a
everybody
a
come
good
up.
important point for operating a hotel, yeah. Okay, any other questions for the applicant before we move on to the public portion? No? Okay.
No,
yeah.
but I just so everybody, I just asked Rob, if this were to sell down the road, does it change, does it revert back, does this come, and he just advised me that it stays.
Yes.
So the next person taking over the hotel is restricted the same way.
That was the important thing about this, is making it run with the land for future people. so-
Correct.
Right, there's two ways we're accomplishing that. One would be, as part of the legislative act that you're going to do, if you do it, would be that it is a condition of the zone change, and I have the language in there, and I'm gonna make one small change. And Tom Divney and I were talking beforehand about specific cases that address this, and I'll just, for the record, throw them out there. One was a 1981 Court of Appeals case, Collard versus Village of Flower Hill. The other was a recent, or more recent, 2010 case from the Appellate Division, Second Department, Mallins versus Foley. Again, both of which upheld in various circumstances what some might call conditional zoning, or sometimes you may hear the word spot zoning. This comes up. The cases that I just cited indicated that, provided that the conditions are rational and related to, prudent land use planning, that it's appropriate. So I think, given the circumstances here, that it's an existing property, existing building, we're changing the zone to permit this one use, but the board, again, in its legislative function, doesn't want this to turn into a potential 9 or 10-story building situation. So the condition is there. It's as Mr. Sharetta said, he's agreed to it. Their clients agreed to it. It will not only be part of the decision here tonight, but they will sign what's called a restrictive covenant, which will be recorded in the county clerk's office. So any future owner, when they go to buy it, that will come up in their title report that, oh, here's this covenant that says this is what applies in terms of the bulk regulations and the uses. So it's kind of a double, belt and
Right.
suspenders, as they say.
And I think the main purpose of what we're trying to accomplish by these compromises here, if we do move forward, is to keep this usage as similar to what it is today, tomorrow as it is today, no matter who owns it. Because right now it's a conference center, a hotel. It was effectively illegally used as a hotel by the prior owner for many years. It's the very similar use. The other permitted uses in the current zone, if it's not changed, if someone wanted to sell this, or if they couldn't make it work as a conference center, are much more high impact uses or nonprofit uses like a college or something like that, which would take you completely off the tax rolls and also have a higher impact. So our goal, if we do move forward, would be to keep it like it is by making a change, essentially. Okay, anything else from you, Rob, about the topic
No,
right
just
now?
that was
And
good.
Jerry,
Jerry
you're good?
brought
You guys are good? Okay. We're going to open it up to the public. Rosanna, do we have any more written things sent back to us since then? It was all the comments we got were from like the Rockland County Planning. We're all in, right? We got that?
Right, the only thing was county planning had mentioned 2 other properties that were LO.
Oh, those tiny
and-
little ones.
Right, whether we should look into changing those, but,
Which we say we looked into.
right, I
There's no
think
reason
that,
to.
right, we looked at them and Jane looked at them. It didn't make sense to change them to OP. Frankly, they just don't make it bulk-wise.
They're too
Yeah.
small, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I don't have anyone who signed in. Did we have a sign-in sheet out there? I didn't see. Did anyone know that they signed in for the public hearing? If no one, everyone shakes their head no, we know there was no sign-in. All right, Carol, go ahead, you can go first. Just, even if I know who you are, just please say your name for the record so we have it. And then we'll go. Everyone gets 5 minutes, and it's for this topic. This is not for everything, so it's for this particular topic, up to 5 minutes, whenever you're ready.
Hi, I'm Carol Baxter from Palisades. We've had a good relationship with IBM, and we welcome H&A to the community as well. We understand the desire to have hotel, to continue what IBM had been doing. We understand that use. we were a little concerned and nervous about the OP zoning. When you look at the OP zoning and you know that the only other OP in the community is Blue Hill Plaza, which is 21 floors. It's got a nursery school, it's got a gym, it's got a car wash, it's got hair salons, it's got different kinds of stores. So for us, it was a red flag for us to allow that to happen. But in this working out with this restrictive covenant, which I think, we didn't get any paper on the restrictive covenant, so some people might not know
It's in
exactly
the
what.
agenda item. If you go into the agenda, you can see it.
I don't,
Yeah.
did you people
Some-
see agendas?
No, it's, well, the content of it is.
I don't know if there were any agendas out there. Did-
Page 6, if you have an agenda in front of you.
Okay.
It's written down, but yeah, go ahead.
Just to clarify for everybody and the board, that under the restrictive covenant, they will have OP zoning, which will allow them to have a hotel. And there was the other part line in the OP which said service convenience stores, something like that. So the restrictive covenant that is attached to the OP zone goes into the deed, and it's registered with the Rockland County Clerk's Office, and it follows the current owner and the next owner. So when the next people come in to purchase the property, it's in there as a restrictive covenant that they must keep the height at 50 feet, which is about 5 stories, which is what it is now. And the applicant owner agrees that incidental convenience shops shall not be permitted on the property. So I can't speak for the community, but I think that this feels like it's a protection for the community for overdevelopment, a 24-story building, and H&A will be able to function as a hotel. So that's what I have to say. As long as I'm sure about this restrictive covenant and everybody understands what it is.
I just want to point out, we were just discussing that
Yeah, I was
second,
gonna ask that
that
question.
second, what we're saying is that incidental convenience store is what allows them to operate a sundry store in the hotel. So I don't know if you need to put that in.
So yeah, my question, and Tom is asking the same question, but maybe to rephrase, because I'm curious what you think about it. Obviously, everyone, I'm sure, agrees you need a place to buy a toothbrush at a hotel, but no one wants more than a place to buy a
That-
toothbrush at a hotel.
That's what incidental convenience store allows you to go down to the first floor and buy a newspaper or a soda
Right.
or a toothbrush. Anything else like a 7-Eleven or convenience store is not incidental to the hotel.
So
Right.
that would not be
But
permitted.
I'm just being practical because every time I go away, I'm going down to that first floor lobby to get something, whether it
Right.
be my toothbrushes for my children or some chips for the kids or what have you. And when I looked at it, I just said that incidental is part of a sundry store on the first floor. 7-Eleven is a freestanding building that has it's not an incidental use to the hotel. So
Right.
that's why that's the discussion we've been having tonight.
I guess the question would be is if the phrasing, and I just want to get the opinion of anyone who chooses to speak about this because it would be a change from what everyone was looking at. If the phrasing was changed to the applicant owner agrees that only incidental convenience shops shall be permitted in the sense that they must be incidental as opposed to, because maybe the zone could change, it could permit it, but this would be permanent running with the land that would have to be incidental. Then
The
What
zone
is the
already has it.
it
definition,
does
though,
right
of,
now, but the zone could be changed if it's running with the land.
what
then it
is
would
the
be permanent.
definition of incidental? What is incidental?
Well, I
Rob,
think
the
that's why
lawyers on that
I had Jane get up. If somebody came in with an application to the building, they'd have to go to the building department and say, I want to put in a 7-Eleven at that location. Jane, as the building inspector, code enforcement officer, would deny it, saying that is not a permitted use
On the
in
new
this
zone, in the
zone
new zone.
because it's only incidental convenience, it's only incidental, meaning incidental to the hotel. So,
Right.
such as the sundry shop. So that's, the interpretation. That's how I interpret it, that's how she's interpreting it. So that's how it would happen.
Right. We were talking about separate standalone 7-Eleven, whatever, but we're also about any stores inside the mall, which is restricted, that will not be permitted.
Right, and that's
Because
what
we're not talking
trying
about
to
just
say.
standalone stores, but anything
No.
that's inside, like Blue
Some-
Hill has inside.
Right, and Blue Hill they have other uses that they use in there that are allowed in there, right? So, like, the question would be, I guess,
It has to be related to the hotel.
Right.
it-
Robert, what is the exact term, what was the exact sentence in the OP? It says that last bottom sentence, that exact last sentence.
I'll read it for you right now.
Yeah. Just for
It says,
clarification.
general accessory uses. Number 2 is incidental convenience shops and services serving primarily employees and others using the facilities in the office park.
Yeah,
So
that-
that could include, maybe, I don't,
guests and
a hair,
employees.
Right.
I don't know,
Yeah.
a nail
That-
salon, I don't know.
Yeah,
That word primarily was the one that was kind of a red flag for us, because primarily could mean the general public as well. So, yeah, so,
Well,
So we-
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I think that means if somebody from the general public comes in
can't
to buy a newspaper, they're not going to say, no, you can't
right,
have it.
right,
But
right. Okay, so maybe other people from the community
Yeah,
would like
of
to
course,
speak, but I think
absolutely,
that the hotel has been used as a hotel. So,
so long as there's no stores and it's not taller, Carol thinks it's good. Okay,
that's my viewpoint.
all right, good, thank you.
Thank you.
Not the normal format, but this is a kind of a late-minute change, yeah. Lauren, go ahead. We'll try to be more traditional going forward with this. Go ahead.
My name is Lauren Plotkin, and I am a resident of Palisades. Instead of using the word convenience, couldn't we just use the word sundry? Convenience is a freighted word, and 7-Eleven is a convenience store. And there are other convenience stores which are not similarly branded. But I take your point entirely about giving them an opportunity to have a sundry shop there, which I think will be less misunderstood in 5 years or 10 years from now, when we may not be here to explain what we intended. That's all I have to say. Otherwise, I am happy that we've been able to come to an understanding with HNA, and I wish them good luck with the hotel.
Thank you. Anyone else on the topic? Yes, back left, sorry.
I'm Rex Lallier. I live in Palisades. I'm also an architect. And first of all,
Yes,
can you hear me now?
definitely.
Okay. So I live in Palisades. I'm also an architect. And I'm sorry I was not at the previous hearings, but it's just to talk about, first of all, I applaud the idea of trying to let them make this a hotel and keep it within what we think would be a great neighbor, which would be something of the scale of what's there. I think there should be a couple of other covenants to consider, though. One is there's no minimum size for a lot, and I don't know what they intend to do, but there could be a subdivision of this lot because there's no minimum size as long as you keep the the side yard, front yard, and all that. You could subdivide an additional property off of 340 on the back easily, and it would still meet the OP regulations or bulk regulations. So that's one thing. The other thing is the FAR. I think FAR is incredibly important for this lot because to maintain the character of this site, it's not so, the height of the building is one thing, but the FAR is another because the FAR of 0.4 would allow an incredible amount of this lot to be filled with buildings that are 50 feet high. I'm not speaking about the intentions of the current owners, but if you change the OP, you're opening up all of that to happen. That's my point.
Okay, that's,
Can you,
yeah, sorry, that's really the first covenant
thank you, I'm
in there.
sorry. Is that all?
That's it.
Okay, good. I'm going to ask Rob some of the questions based on what you just said, but thank you.
Right. In terms of the bulk, the first covenant in there basically is that the bulk regulations for LO, which is what it currently is.
They're both the same. They're both 0.4.
Not exclusively, because with respect to, in OP, hotels arguably could be much different. With an OP hotels, I'm sorry.
Rob, here's a question, like, why didn't we just create a new zone for this? That would have been the smart thing to do.
Well, here's the only concern.
You're trying to put a square peg in a round hole. We should have just done it as a hotel zone.
The alternative was to put, it's in LO. So the one concern was we could put it in,
No, I mean, create a whole new zone.
make hotel, you could create a whole new zone.
Which we wouldn't have to, because here's the deal, what we're doing is we're trying to put it in a zone, and then we're trying to craft it so that you're not really put in that zone. You're putting it in a zone with all these conditions and covenants and restrictions. To me, the smart thing would have been to say, all right, this is an opportunity for us to create a zone for hotels. I don't know.
Yeah, the only, and that's possible. The only concern is we don't currently have a zone like that. It's really not in the comprehensive plan. And so that kind of leads you a little more towards spot zoning. Again, you could argue, well, this is spot zoning because you're putting in all these covenants, but.
But, I mean, we just created a number of zones at RPC.
Right, but that was part of the comprehensive plan about the future development of RPC when we had it. I mean, look, is it possible to do another zone? Yes, I think, again, without it being in the comp plan, you're kind of saying, look, OP is okay here under these conditions. I mean, is it 6 of one, half a dozen of another? Yes. The concerns that were raised here, what we're saying is the bulk that currently applies in LO will apply in OP. That was the other.
So there's no change. The issue is that we're not trying to limit the use that they would otherwise have under LO. So we're not trying to, we don't want, like, right now under LO, they could come in with certain applications, and we're not trying to take away value from their land. We're just trying to let the hotel use continue, which makes those other applications less likely.
Right.
Some changes, like changing like the subdivisions or that sort of thing, if it already, the LO is still applying under the zone change, we're basically removing stuff that's already there today if they didn't come in for their petition. I mean, that's
Correct.
the concern I have. But
Correct.
I don't want, like to Tom's point, I don't want to be, basically writing a new zone by putting a restriction on height and saying LO bulk rules apply is like one thing. It's pretty straightforward. But when we start getting into what we would theoretically ever want here and rewrite the whole thing, that's not what they came in for,
Yeah, I mean, if we were to rewrite the zone, it would, look very similar to what we have, which would be basically allow a hotel and then all the bulk for LO, so.
If they right now, today in this zone and tomorrow if we change the zone to OP with these restrictions, would there be any difference in their ability to subdivide or in their floor area ratios?
No, again, no.
That's wrong.
Right,
I
no,
disagree. I
because-
disagree. There's a 75 acre limit on the LO, and there's no.
Is that part of the bulk regulations?
Yes.
Right.
Again, just to be clear, they are agreeing that the bulk regulations from LO will still apply. So that's what I think that's the point that's being missed.
Right.
So that OP difference.
Everything will apply.
Every
The
bulk
minimum
regulation.
lot area of
The height
75
is
still
part of
applies.
all the
It's right
bulk
there,
regulations.
LO.
So all LO.
Yes.
Group
That's
W.
what we're trying to say. So we're not going to back that up any
So
further.
it's not just the 94 feet,
No,
it's the.
every bulk regulation. from
Okay,
LO.
so
Let me
go
just be
ahead.
clear, because you
Yeah.
obviously know about it. LO, Group W, applies for the hotel. So everything that you had for Executive Conference Center in Group W under LO will apply for the hotel. Everything else, and again, it's unique to the code, but everything else is, it goes to, believe it or not, LIO
It all
for
points
uses.
to another zone.
But,
Right, I know what LIO
but
is.
it does, when you get to the end in terms of bulk, it's as it exists today.
Okay.
The bulk isn't changing. It's only the use of hotel is what we've written it as on page 6 of the agenda, if you look at it. So,
Okay, so I mean, what that would restrict is that since there's the 75 acre limit on the, will continue then.
The
So they-
minimum,
Yes.
the minimum.
So they
lot-
cannot subdivide this property? Is
Well,
that the answer there?
if you're using it as an executive
Except
conference, lecture center, or hotel.
Except it's currently allowed to under current zoning. They cannot subdivide
A
essentially.
different use, just like today, if a different use came in under LO, that could be subdivided.
Right, so
But
today,
that's how it exists
if
today.
tomorrow they sold it to a completely different use, and it was not the conference center, and we left it as LO zone, there's subdivisions allowed right now today, no changing the zone. Tomorrow, if it's a different zone, it's still the same risk of that. That's no change by changing the zone because of this restrictive covenant, essentially. So, if that answers your question.
Yeah, the only thing, and, I want these guys to be successful. I want them to make a hotel and all that. All I'm saying is that maybe by giving them this, one other covenant I would consider is to limit the FAR on this property, because the FAR at .4 for this property would completely change the nature of what that facility is.
All right, thank you,
That's
appreciate
all.
it. Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, back my right, gentlemen. Yes, you. Thank you.
Good evening.
Thank you. Did you say your name for the
Yeah,
record?
my name is Paul George. I live in Palisades, and our property backs right into HNA. I'm sorry that I've missed some of the meetings because I just haven't been able to attend, but I was here about, I guess about a year ago when HNA was looking to refurbish the rooms or do some construction, and it was an issue about which way they were going to expand, and it was, and I'm sorry because I know you guys talk about R this and W that. I really don't have a good understanding about that. But what I am concerned about is, since our property is right there, I'm concerned about expansion. I'm concerned about activity. I bought a beautiful piece of property. It's very tranquil. It's at the end of a street. There's a certain value attached with that. And I feel that if certain activities starts to get commercialized, it's going to diminish, our quality and, our quality of life there. And so that's my concern. Lights, I see, even now, it's not too much, but you see a lot of lights with cars, not too bad. But if that increases, maybe that becomes an issue. If they begin to expand towards our property, and I don't know if they can. I was under the understanding that where we are, they can't build, but I don't know if that's going to change. So those are the concerns that we have.
Okay. Thank you.
I mean, yeah, you said it all. I mean, that was one of the main reasons why we purchased that property, was because we were told that that would not be able to be subdividable, or they wouldn't be able to build at a certain, distance from our own property. So,
Okay.
Those are our concerns, our main concern.
So those are important concerns to us.
Thank you very much. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. And then, again, it was going between, I'll start, Rob, that the bulk table for LO as currently applied would prevent anything that would have been prevented yesterday, tomorrow, theoretically. Bulk-wise. So in terms of ability to expand, in terms of all that other stuff, there would be no change.
Right, we're not voting on it,
It's
staying
staying,
the same.
staying
Well,
as it would be otherwise.
Yeah, and just to address maybe some of the issues that came up, this might be a way to address it. Here's what's permitted there today,
Yeah, I was
which will
pulling that up,
also be
actually.
permitted if the zone is changed. So this is already permitted.
Tomorrow it could happen. with
A
us doing
fire,
nothing.
police, and community-owned ambulance station, government offices and office buildings, town garages, et cetera. So in other words, if a municipality bought it. 2, schools of general instruction. 3, executive conference lecture facilities. 4, business and professional office. So right now, today, business and professional office can be there. 5, research, experiment, and testing labs subject to performance standards, et cetera. All those things are permitted today. They are also all permitted if this changes, in addition to a hotel. So that's the only change in terms of what's permitted
And
there.
how
But the
much of them you can build will stay the same as well.
Bulk, right, the bulk regulations will stay the same,
So like the
change.
quantity of office park, a business professional office you can build today under LO will be unchanged if we change the zone to the OP, because it references the same bulk tables, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Helena Power. I'm from Palisades, and I also want to stress that prudent land use, I think, is very significant here. And I really appreciate the attention you're paying to that, because the character of Rockland County would be greatly changed, I think, as from that point in 9W, we've already got a lot going on over there. I also think, because it does protect the character of Rockland, that supporting the endeavor, which I do, of a high-end hotel and a high-end luxury conference facility could only be great for the community as long as the restrictive covenant remains in perpetuity, going from deed owner to deed owner. Also, that 106 acre property is maintained, because that will make it the most attractive place, I think, in Rockland to hold a conference. It might be, I think it would be a win-win situation. Anyway, thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Sir?
Hi, my name is Richard Ellis, and I'm a resident of Palisades and also a Realtor for over 30 years in the area. And I'm really happy for the compromise that's everyone's talking about. I think that's great. My role as a Realtor in the area, I know how people love the bucolic landscape, the 9W corridor, and it's very attractive for home values in the area. So my concern would be a major change to the landscape, and I was thinking perhaps a scenic easement might be important to impose both on the 9W side as well as the 340 side, so that the look for the community doesn't change dramatically. And I also think signage is perhaps needs to be restricted. I don't know if there's a different use or permission for the size of signage in the different zones or not. But I think those two things, the look of the business from both sides of the property is important, and all the other concerns that were voiced, I agree with 100%, and I wish them well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else who would like to speak? Yes, sir.
Thank you and good evening. My name is Rodney Perez, and I'm also a resident of Palisades. Bought my home 2 years ago, and my family is very happy coming from New Jersey over to New York. And my twin boys are happy to consider themselves New Yorkers now. Look, I think simply put, because the HNA is going to receive some kind of benefit, I think that the 0.4 FAR, the floor area ratio, would allow the site to be further developed, and changing the character of the site. I think that we really need to be mindful of that. And so I wanted to go on record to express some of the things that have already been expressed this evening, but just to kind of accent how critical it is that we don't allow this site to really change the character of the neighborhood of Palisades particularly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Sir?
I'm Harold Hildebrand, resident of Palisades. My property abuts the H&A facility. My major concern is not so much of hotel use, but being explicit in what is allowed in those covenants that are put in perpetuity, so that it's not open to not just whatever lawyers are sitting here now, but when H&A sells it and someone else buys it and brings in some corporate lawyer and interprets those things differently, or wants to do something different, that it changes dramatically and is allowed under whatever the lawyer interprets it to be. So unless you're explicit with what is allowed under the zoning change, then it's too open to interpretation for people down the road.
All right, thank you. And just because not everyone has a copy of the agenda that has this written out, I just want to read out for everyone what the exact restrictions currently contemplated are. Be it further resolved that as a condition of granting this change, the applicant has agreed to the following conditions, which shall be binding upon the applicant, its successors, and assigns, and which must be incorporated into a restrictive covenant to be recorded at the Rockland County Clerk's office at the applicant's expense as further evidence of same. 1, the applicant/owner agrees that the bulk regulations is contained in Chapter 43, Section 3.12, Table of Bulk Regulations, as shown in the LO district, which is the current district, Group W, and as may be amended, shall apply for any use as a hotel conference center at the subject property, And for any other uses, the bulk regulations is applicable for LIO, as same may be amended shall apply. In the current zone, the rest of the bulk usage points to the LIO zone, so again, that is still exactly the same. Pretty specific there. And then what we were discussing with the number 2, currently it was saying only incidental convenience, agrees that incidental convenience shops shall not be permitted at the property. We are not trying to prevent them, however, from having a shop to sell toothpaste in there. We're trying to prevent a little shopping mall. So that's still up for a little bit of discussion as to what we shift on that language. Is there anyone else in the public that wanted to comment before we move on to the non-public comment portion? Yes, Tom.
This is for Lena. You guys are in
Just 1
front
second, I'm
of
sorry.
the land use boards, and you got an approval for an expansion, that's correct?
That is correct.
And how many more rooms would be built according to that expansion?
So what we did was, right now, there are presently 206, and that was expanded to 302 rooms, and that was, so it's a net addition of 96 rooms that was part of that planning board application that was approved last year.
And that's on the other side of the property away from the residence.
That's correct.
Okay.
But if the property's developed or sold, you guys could always come back in and ask for more units, right? More rooms.
I think the applicant the owner of the property could always come back and ask for more, but that would be subject to the usual review and approval process.
No, I agree, but all these people are concerned, and they're out here tonight because they're concerned about future development of that property once we give them an approval to operate it as a hotel.
But I just think, just to make it clear for everyone, and just so we don't get lost on this, that this property, just so everyone understands, I heard a couple of times that the character of the neighborhood, they want to preserve it. So as has been said by town council and some of your members of the board, the character is not changing by what H&A has petitioned this board, because for years, this property has been used to accommodate overnight guests. In the beginning, they were doing it, again, in a connection with a conference center use and training. They would come in, and then for years, they were hosting guests that weren't taking conferences there, and they were operating as a hotel.
They meaning not H&A.
They being not H&A. When this practice was brought to our client's attention, and they're here tonight, they ceased that because they want to do the right thing, and I expressed this to the board at the last meeting. They want to be good neighbors, but to bring it back right now into LO, as your town attorney stated, the character of the neighborhood is not changing here. It really isn't. Really, all we're doing, and in the simplest terms, is adding the hotel use. We, as H&A, we've agreed to apply whatever bulk regulations that currently exist on the books for LO/LIO to continue. We've agreed to put that in perpetuity. The same thing with the convenience slash sundry gift shop. We can even specify that when we draft that restrictive covenant. But the character of the neighborhood is not changing. It's not that we're asking or we petition this board to create a new zone. And to that point, and again, just to echo what the town attorney said, the reason why we petition the board to change it to OP is because, number one, it's not spot zoning when you're doing it in conjunction and in conformance with your comprehensive plan, your zoning plan. So, and this falls into that. Spot zoning is when you take a small piece of property and make it something that it really isn't, where it shouldn't be. Here, you have a 106-acre parcel that is currently being used as a hotel. Again, it's supposed to be used as a hotel for conference center use, but we're looking to just expand that use just to not conference center folks, but to the general public that want to use that facility. Nothing is changing other than that. So I know to all the residents here, the character of that property is not changing. It's been like that for many years. And again, I can't predict the future, what that property, who's going to be subdivided, not, but the restrictions are there in place today, and they will be tomorrow if this board so chooses to preserve that site with respect to the bulk and area regulations. So I just wanted to make sure that clear.
So just to be clear for the public, you're permitted to build the 96 rooms already?
Yes.
That's correct.
As long as they were used as a conference center, not as a regular, so the only thing we're changing is allowing it to be used as a hotel, which it currently is. It was just, it
Correct.
wasn't under the permitted zone. But we're not approving the building, the 96 rooms. That's already been approved.
That was
And
approved
they could build
last
that
year.
tomorrow without
I
being
think
here.
what Paul's
That's
saying
correct.
is when you see that start, it wasn't us. It was
Yeah,
someone
that was the planning board, not the town board, that approved that project, again, about a year ago. So,
Well, I should also point out that, they're, by agreeing to these conditions, a height restriction, no standalone, I'm gonna call it a standalone convenience store, things of that nature, we're actually putting restrictions on the property that will help preserve the way it is exactly now. You know, without that, there are a lot other possibilities that the property could be used for, and that's not the intention here. You know, it's to remain as is. You know, I listened to all of the comments, and I think everybody kind of agrees conceptually about the sundry store or the convenience store. I think it's just really a matter of working out a little bit of language with the town attorney to be agreed upon, put in a restrictive covenant, which will be recorded in the Rockland County Clerk's office. Anybody searching the title, anybody buying the property will pick up on that and understand that those restrictions are in place for any future use of the property. You know, I mean, I listened to the comments. I would say, I think you want to ban standalone convenience store, and you want to have a sundry store that's incidental to
Hotel use.
hotel
Which is allowed, well,
Something
my
along
point
those
is
lines.
that sundry store is allowed in that zone right now.
Is it?
With the length, yes.
Under OP or under?
No,
Under LO.
Under,
I think that's the reason for the
In LO, it's not, is the problem.
It's
Current
OP,
usage.
OP that the convenience
but-
standalone store would be permitted, but
But
we're
it's
agreeing
allowed
to
in
do away with
OP.
that.
Right, it is allowed.
so you're allowed to have a sundry store. By putting the language in that you have in right now, I don't think you are allowed.
You would, that's the problem.
No, but I think, what I'm
There's
thinking
language
as
that
we're
could
hearing it is,
still-
the way I'd prefer to handle it, because the more it, kind of, to your point, the more it matches the OP zone, I think the better it is. Perhaps we'll add something, instead of saying, if the board is going that way, in terms of allowing the incidental convenience shops, put something in that the applicant owner agrees that incidental convenience shops means, you know,
A sundry store.
sundry
A sundry
stores
store.
incidental to the.
And does
contains-
not mean.
Right,
It
does
does
not
not
mean
mean
seven,
standalone.
right,
Standalone.
standalone,
The other
freestanding.
thing I think we got to point out is, Brian brought up, is that the deeds going forward aren't going to have this restrictive covenant. They're going to just have the restrictive covenant recorded in the county clerk's office. It's, so when you do a title search, that restrictive covenant will come up in the title search, but it does not appear in the deed. It's just something that is a public record that the title company will flag when the property is transferred to another entity or person.
Right, it's permanent,
And-
but it's not actually written into the deed. It's-
And one thing I just want to add to what Mr. Shredder said, currently, they did receive a special permit, I want to say about 10, 15 years ago, to allow catered affairs, outside catered affairs. So a wedding, bar mitzvah, whatever, you could have an affair, people could stay there. So there was a special permit issued to permit that, and that is permitted now.
Well, that's permitted under the zoning right now.
Today.
Right, but they got a special permit. In other words,
Of course.
it originally came in as an executive conference lecture
Yes.
center.
And then they-
Subsequently, they came back and got from a special permit. Like
Which
the-
was put into the zoning and allowed you to have special permits.
Correct.
Right. Okay. Ma'am, I think you had one more public comment, and maybe there was someone else.
Hi, my name is Mickey Hyun. I live in Palisades. Thanks for saying that the HNA will not change the fabric of the neighborhood. I've lived in Palisades for last 18 years, and we really enjoy how everything is very natural, very low density, and those are the things and values that we really like to stay put. If it had been that HNA asked for a, very high density, it would be very detrimental to our neighborhood. So by saying in public that it will stay that way, I really appreciate that. The thought just occurred to me, a lot of hotels have in their lobby Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts. Will that be a possibility for them to have in their first floor, lower floor for the hotel people? And what would prevent from public to go there and have coffee?
Any other questions? We're going to touch
No.
that after you're done.
No, that's it.
Okay, great,
Yeah.
thank you. I guess it really will depend on how exactly we phrase this, is kind of.
Well,
what it
no,
boils down
not necessarily, because it's the same as it currently is. It says incidental eating and
to.
drinking
Incidental
facilities.
eating
So
and drinking is already permitted, so yeah, if there's a tiny little, like, the type of type of Starbucks you see in the Target in the Palisades Mall, where it's just like right there, that's already allowed under current zoning, so that would still be allowed under future zoning. Yes?
I'm Susan Nemesti. I live in Palisades. And my only comment is
I appreciate that H&A would like to run this hotel. I hope them much success, because as long as they're able to run and make a profit and keep the H&A the way it is and the property the way it is now, the longer we'll head off a new company coming in and possibly flipping it to God knows what. So I think we should support, the hotel, but keeping it as it is right now and not adding any more rooms, not building onto it, and not developing any more of the land. Palisades isn't exactly a major destination. The traffic that we do get, the tourism we do get right now, whatever it is fine. So I hope much success for, H&A. That's all I have to say.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else who wanted to speak in the public comment? Sir? I'm not sure that we do, are they allowed to, they're not, if it's a quick, bullet point, then yes, after, okay. Go on, sir.
David Englander. First of all, I'd like to thank Supervisor Day and Mr. Macrino for sort of having an open dialogue with the community about the matter that's before the board now. The issue of running with the land and the restrictive covenant, I think, should give the community a great deal of comfort with regard to both the present use, the present maintenance of the quality and the environment now and for the future. There's a question that's come up as to whether or not, in terms of running with the land, whether that would be in successive deeds or would simply be the recorded document in the county clerk's office. And I turn to Mr. Macrino for his opinion with regard to that.
Well, the reason we do restrictive covenant is because the current deed is the current deed. It's been recorded. That can't be changed.
Right.
The way you, not change it, but the way you affect it is by having a restrictive covenant, which gets recorded after the deed. It's in what's called, as you know, the chain of title. So now it's in the chain of title, whether it's in subsequent deeds or not. The restrictive covenant, as it will be written, will say it applies to all future owners, so it applies. And again, and the reason we do that is because, as many people have brought up, H&A could sell this tomorrow or 6 months from now or whenever, so we do have to look at this as if it's not H&A and somebody wants to come in and do it differently. And that's frankly the way the board is looking at it and the way we've kind of trying to protect it. Look, we can't guarantee that they're not going to sell it, but what we can control is putting in this restrictive covenant that will make sure that the next person has to live by it. That said, earlier I read the 4 or 5 permitted uses. Somebody could come in and knock the entire thing down and do something that's permitted there already. And
Absolutely.
that doesn't, the action tonight doesn't change that.
Right, but just to clarify, I mean, whether or not the covenant is in a successive deed, it will be recorded in the county clerk's office and will run with the land with regard to any successive owners who take title.
Right, and I'll defer to Tom Divany and Teresa Kenny, who are preeminent land use, or should say, real estate attorneys in the county, who I think would agree that the covenant will run with the land and it's part of the title.
Right.
Correct, Ms. Kenny?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Tom's the number 1, she's the number 2, so he agrees. All right, good. Thank you very much. You had one quick one?
I understand going back that all the bulk for OP will be, the thing is, when they bought this property, they bought it for what it was, an LO, and I think we're giving them a benefit here, which I'm all in favor of, by the way. I think we should do it, but with, whether it's them or the next developer, and if they went to a .4 FAR, and because it's now a commercial property, it is much more likely that a buyer would use it to its full extent, that while if it was restricted to a convention, I mean, whatever it was before that, then that convention restricts it sort of automatically, because there's not, you want it to be a retreat, you want it to be these things. But if it's really viable for hotel at a .4 FAR. There's no restricting it from being completely developed, the site. That's all.
And again, just to clarify, it is commercial now, it's a different commercial zone, but the, again, an issue is just that the intent is to make it more likely it continues in its current usage. And yeah, if the FAR is a little screwy in a lot of the zones in Orangetown, to be honest, it's a little high, but I don't know if we want to get into, again, we started getting into like the specific spot zoning and deed stuff, but anyway, any other public commentary before we move to the final ringing out of this wash? Okay. Do I have a motion to close the public portion of the, Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Vitari, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so touching on the number 2, I'm going to throw out a proposed possible new language, and you guys let me know what you think about it for the shops. The applicant/owner agrees that incidental convenience shops, as permitted in the OP zone, shall mean non-freestanding sundry shops. So basically, they're agreeing as to what it actually means, so there's no future expansion of it to.
Say it again.
Right now, basically, the OP, the only thing it adds is this incidental convenience shop. So what we're gonna add is, or could add is, the applicant/owner agrees that incidental convenience shops, as permitted in the OP zone, shall mean non-freestanding sundry shops. So it limits it to internal, it limits it to the type of place you buy a few things. The sundries, but it doesn't change the whole convenience definition. I think it,
Yeah, I think that works.
what do you think? Jerry, Tom?
Have we defined any of those in the town code?
Which one? Freestand? Well, freestanding is obviously. Sundry, I don't know about that.
I don't know the sundry is defined in there, I don't think so. I'll ask.
Maybe we can
James,
find that.
No, I'm just saying.
Hold on.
When it's not defined in the code, it's the, your typical usage and the
What's in
interpretation of
common
the building
use?
department, right.
Yeah.
It's defined.
Okay, so it's whatever being common use as sundry shop. Does that make more sense than what we had originally, I guess would be the question?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So is the applicant okay with that conceptual phrasing as the second bullet point for the? We are. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna ask if there's any discussion you guys want to have before we move to the next, so I guess for secret would be the next one. Hold on, sorry, I skipped ahead. Does anyone have anything they want to discuss before we move to the secret and then move to the actual
I'm
vote?
fine.
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Tom.
We're gonna change the zone. We change the zone, the applicant or the successor to the applicant go to the planning board and get another 150 rooms approved, correct, Rob?
I'm not sure how many additional they could get approved. They've already been approved.
But, no, they could go back to the planning board
If it fits the bulk, yes.
if it fits the bulk.
Yes.
Under current zoning or this new zoning, it's the same bulk though.
No, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Because we're here saying we're gonna do all these great things with these restrictions, but we're not doing anything regarding how many units they can actually, or rooms they eventually can put into this area.
No.
I just want the public to be completely aware of that.
We're not changing what could go into here today or tomorrow, whether it's LO or OP. If they currently permitted another 20 rooms, another 10 rooms, another 100 rooms under current zoning, they would be permitted that still under the new zoning as contemplated. They wouldn't be permitted anything more under new zoning other than its hotel as opposed to conference center. But the size of building allowed is currently the same under both zones as contemplated. Yeah, go ahead, read the definition of hotel.
Just to be clear, the definition in the town code of hotel is actually hotel/conference center. It's building a group of buildings to provide overnight lodging, dining, and conference facilities. Buildings may include administrative offices, guest rooms, restaurants, drinking places, conference and meeting rooms, ballrooms, recreation facilities, pool, tennis courts, fitness centers, jogging paths, et cetera, and ancillary services for guests, employees, and management. So that
That's exactly
incorporates
what they have
what we're
already,
looking for.
basically, yeah.
That's why there's a little separate thing for incidental shops.
All right. If there's no more commentary before we do a few the vote on the neg deck and for secra, or we'll move to that one. All
I'm
right.
good.
So do I have a motion for the secra portion of this? in the negative declaration.
I'll make,
Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Vitari. All in favor?
aye.
Just, Jane, I have a question. Is Jane here?
Jane was here, I saw her.
She's here.
Yeah, she is. She's come back in. I guess the speakers do work out there. That's good. Yeah, Eric's got to work on this, getting this heat right.
Do
See
we-
if it's
do
too
we
hot or
know-
too cold in here.
Right now, they have, what, 302 rooms? How many more rooms could they get under the proposed zoning or the existing zone? I just want to know. Okay.
I can get back to the board tomorrow morning, but
Because, again, the applicant is either going to develop or sell it to someone else is going to develop, and we're giving them the benefit of this new zone. Because they can't rent this out unless it's for conference or catering.
Yeah, like a bar mitzvah, wedding, or. a
And I've been
conference.
burned too many times where I really think that we should restrict the number of rooms they can build in the restricted covenant. I think we should tell them, give us the number, and that's the number you're stuck at. That's how I think we should do this. That's my opinion.
The problem with that
I don't
is
know
if they go to sell it,
Mhm.
and the people don't find it, the value of the hotel, they could tear it down and make an office park.
That's also, my concern is that if we restrict the hotel too much,
Or
we're
school.
encouraging the other usages. By saying, the good use is the hotel, the one that's like kind of minimalistic is hotel. And I get the purpose of it, your thought process, I really do. It's just, I'm worried that if we put too many restrictions on hotel, and that's the whole reason why I'm even considering this whole exercise and why I've wasted so much time on it, is that if it's not allowed to continue in an economically viable manner as its current footprint or similar or even like slightly larger or whatever, similar to that, it's more likely to become a college campus annex, which there are other college campus annexes in the area. It's more likely to become another type of educational institution. It's more likely to become an office park of some sort where you can get more
School.
floor area ratio, school, any type of school. If you disincentivize the good use,
But
that's
they,
what I'm worried about.
they have 300 rooms.
I agree, yeah.
That's a huge hotel.
but you can also address it by limiting the FAR.
Then let's do it.
What would the FAR?
Because the FAR counts each level of the building. So it counts all the square footage of the structure added together in relationship to the size of the lot. So in essence, saying something very similar.
I mean, we give the approval that there's an end around. We get egg on our face. Why are we going to put ourselves in that position?
Would the FAR apply to all uses? Like, it wouldn't just restrict hotel uses?
Yes.
That's what I'm concerned about, is restricting just
Well,
hotel. don't
I'll
wanna say
allow
just
the
hotel.
attorney to answer that question because that would be a restriction based upon your agreement for the zone change.
I mean, I think before you make a change like that, I would rather have Jane do the calculation to say, based on the current FAR, based upon, the current bulk regulations, this is the maximum amount of rooms you can have at this size. Because to just start, putting restrictions, I think we need a little more research on it. Because to change the FAR, now are we changing for the whole zone? Are we just changing it for this one? I'd like to know, if that's a concern, that might, be a legitimate concern. I'd rather hear what the max is, because if it's 50 more rooms, maybe it's not a concern. If it's 300
If it's
more,
300 more
maybe it
rooms,
is.
then, everyone's out here because they're concerned about the character of the neighborhood. If they go to the planning board, and the planning board in the floor area ratios, and you're allowed to do 300 rooms, then, we just approved something where we've just given them the ability. I mean, they haven't built yet because they can't use it as a hotel, but once we approve this, then they can use it as a hotel, and then they can go to the planning board, and then they can get 150, 250 more rooms, and I don't think that was the intent of this board.
No, but right now, they could also
I understand what they
make
can
it an
do.
office thing,
But they,
right next to the conference thing.
but they want to do a hotel, at least that's what they're telling us.
We'd like to keep it as a hotel.
Yeah, but do you want a 600-room hotel?
No, I don't. I don't know if that's what they'd want either, because that will make it from a,
Well, what do you guys want to do?
Well, I also think if it went that route, the planning board would ask for a traffic study and additional studies to be done. They're not just going to allow you to double the size of the
Yeah,
hotel.
maybe, do you guys have this
I
offhand
did
on
ask
you
him to
from
look,
your
yeah.
application? I mean,
Well, do you know those numbers?
like the limits that you were
No.
encountering in the
No,
plan?
you know, there's absolutely no plans to expand the hotel, but I can't say what's going to happen in 30, 40, 50 years when I'm not around here, nobody else is.
No,
I mean, what we've got is, we've got an approval for an additional 96 rooms, which haven't even begun to be commenced yet, to be constructed. You know, I mean, to say, okay, we're going to throw on another 200 rooms in 3 years, it's not going to happen.
Well, I
You
don't
got to go
know.
through the usual secret process. There's going to be a traffic study. Where's it going to go? You got to go do drainage. You know, Jesse, you know, our engineer, would there not be a substantial and lengthy secret process for an expansion of the hotel on that size?
Yeah, you have to step to the mic, sir.
So obviously, stormwater would be a big concern with any increase to that impervious surface at the site. We had to do that as part of the currently approved expansion, and any future expansion would also require that. Additionally, a big concern with, especially hearing people tonight, on 9W's traffic, right? So anything above that would have to go through another round of traffic study and reviews from that end. So all of that stuff would have to be vetted out through the site plan process.
No,
Right, but I-
understand
you know,
that,
to
but
Tom's-
I've never seen a traffic study come back and say, don't build it. Come on.
Well,
I've never seen one that said, let's not build it, this is gonna be real bad. You don't get a traffic study to say that. It's gonna come, whoever's paying the guy is gonna say, oh yeah, it's fine.
Well, and I think to Tom's point, I mean, you know, obviously with secret and coverage, et cetera, I think the concern is as of right. When somebody goes in as of right without needing a variance, it's a concern that what's the highest and the worst, let's say, use of the property as
Are you
of right.
sure?
But it's all there, you know, I mean, again, if you're saying, well, the market's not there for it as an executive conference lecture center or catering place, you know, that may be, but again, they could build the same size executive conference lecture center
Yeah, I
and
know.
catering
The
hall,
question is just
but you're
what-
saying it's unlikely
Do you
because of
guys
the-
remember from your application, you obviously applied for 96 more rooms.
Mhm.
You had to have determined how many you could apply for before you applied for them, since we're sitting here today
So-
rather than continuing it.
So there is, in the definition section of the code, it defines the executive conference lecture or seminar facility. And in there, it limits it, the total occupancy, including administrators and participants, shall be limited to 18 persons per site acre with off-street parking available for those. So at 106 acres, 18 people per acre, as of right, today, it would be over 1,900 people could be on that site. That includes workers and guests.
That translates into ish rooms.
Yeah, I mean, if you had
More than
double
you have.
occupancy room, it would be 900 rooms as
That's
of
what's
right.
allowed today on executive conference center.
Correct.
Is there a similar restriction for number of people per site acre for hotels?
That I didn't see.
Well, if it's in the bulk regulation, that's different. And so the definition of the word, though, in the code, because the bulk tables for LO are still applying. So all the restrictions from LO on that still apply. The question is then, if a hotel, the people per acre thing, that's in the definition of the word conference center in our code. So if it's in the definition.
So that was in, that 18 was in the definition of executive conference center and lecture facility?
Within where? In the.
Yeah, in the, I can give you the section. It was 43, 11.2.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You know, if it's that much of a concern, I would recommend putting it over
I mean,
to
it's
get
my
an
concern.
actual number.
I mean, everyone else on the board may have a different opinion, but it is a concern of mine.
Hold on.
Just a point, I mean, this board, just to go back on this issue, again, I think we're, going far astray here, because, again, your board just voted to neg deck this zone change. And again, it's not even a zone change, it's really, it was a vote to take the neg decade. So we're not changing, the FAR is staying the same, we're not changing any of that. So again, unless I misheard, but I know this board just a few moments ago voted on the neg deck. I thought I heard a second in a
We
motion.
voted on this, on item 3, this is secret in the neg deck, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's,
What come up after? We were talking about the issue that came up, is
it came up after
uses
that
under-
vote,
as
that's
it
why
applies- as
I'm a
applies
little
to the
concerned.
Covenant. I'm looking at the hotel
The point is
definition
what,
right
that
now.
we can't ask for this, because then, you know what, but let's vote on it, and I'll vote against it.
Because again, we're not asking the change, we didn't come here to ask for the change, I mean, it's the same underlying zone. I mean, if, again, as,
But it isn't, because if it was, you wouldn't be here asking to have it changed.
we could, the point of the matter is, we can have those rooms today if we wanted to build those rooms. The
You
only
could, but
change.
you couldn't use it as a hotel, that's the whole reason we're here tonight.
That's true, and we also, if we wanted to change this to full OP, we wouldn't have cooperated and compromised with the community about the stories and the sundries. I mean, you had 94 feet in an OP, we agreed to keep it at 50 feet. So any subsequent application, if there is any, we're gonna have to come back, do a traffic
You're not
study.
gonna come back to us, you're gonna come back to a different board.
We'd have to go back to the planning board, just like the other addition, expansion was to the planning board. But we'd have to go through all that, there'd be public comment. Again, it wouldn't be before your board. We'd have to go back and do all those studies, do secret all over again.
You would have to do the studies, but if it's allowable, you more likely than not, if the studies and the traffic study said that it would be acceptable, they would more likely than not give you that approval.
May or may not. It depends on the traffic flow, depends on the size of the building, depends on the circulation. I mean, there are things that have to be looked at, which will all be looked at planning. If H&A has any plans to do that, which I will tell you right now, other than the plans that were approved last year, there are no plans at this time. But again, I can't predict future use, I can't predict what, future owners are going. But the FAR today and the FAR tomorrow, again, with the change to hotel, is not changing.
No, I understand that, but here's the deal, you can't predict the future, either can I. But you're asking us to change the zone, which would allow you to use it as a hotel. I have concerns, because here's the deal. I have concerns about the floor area ratio. I have concerns about whether that, maybe it's 15, 20 years down the road. You guys come back in here, or whoever owns the property at the time, and says, we want to put more units there. So, if you really want to get this changed to a hotel use, then I think we should try to come up with some kind of compromise where you guys agree that if it is 900, I mean, that's the number getting thrown out, then we come up with a number that is acceptable to both parties. I mean, I don't think that's being unreasonable
No,
at all.
but it is to the extent that we can demolish this whole property tomorrow, put an office park in there, and have the same amount of, cars going in, probably more, than you would with the hotel. We can raise that property tomorrow if they wanted to. They can do a whole new conference center, they can do offices, they can make it more intense than it is for today. And they could do that right now without this board's vote on the change to the hotel use. And again, like I said, for the past, since this has been IBM and its subsequent owners, this property, again, was used, whether rightly or wrongly, it was
Wrongly.
used as a hotel.
Wrongly.
Wrongly, but it has been used as a hotel for many years. It was our client that came in and ceased that practice once the planning board brought it to our attention, and we stopped. So we're here tonight. Again, we think it's a reasonable accommodation. We made compromises with the residents, and again, most of the comments tonight from the public were positive with respect to this change. So again, I don't think from our standpoint, and again, we have accommodated the community. I live here in this community, so to that extent, I think you want to be concerned here because you're focusing just on the hotel component. When you've read the other uses in there, you can pretty much raise this property and build something that's far more intense in terms of use than it is being used presently. So that's why I would be very concerned to start playing around with numbers, FAR, because right now, as it's currently zoned, yes, I think Jesse cited a number, it was like 900 plus, okay? That's today.
But you guys could still do that tomorrow.
That's correct.
That's correct.
But I don't think why, to the extent that we're asking for a hotel use, which is really what's happening on the property today. Anyway, again, people come in for weddings, bar mitzvahs, events, they stay at the hotel. They're using it right now as it is. I don't think what we're asking for is really much in terms of just opening this up to that not restricted to conferences and to lectures and to weddings or bar mitzvahs, to make that next step is a logical leap. And again, I don't see that, given the fact that we made some compromises tonight, I don't think why this should be held up on this issue, respectfully.
The only thing I have to add is, before H&A bought it, I know the board was approached by a school that was looking to purchase the property. So, there were other people who were interested in it. It was frowned upon by the people on the board that they approached, and I think that's why they didn't purchase it, and H&A did. So I'd be careful, you know.
What, you guys gonna use this gun against my head? Give me a break.
No, I'm not using the gun against your head. I'm just,
Everyone will come in and say, oh, we're gonna do this or that if you don't approve it.
I'm just.
Why have
you-
zoning now?
You knew that we were approached by a school, didn't you?
Yeah.
Were you here when they were here?
So
Okay.
what?
I'm just
So
letting you know.
what, Paul? I mean, is
That
what
will
you-
change the character of
Okay,
the community
all right,
a lot more than a
whatever.
hotel.
Question for the engineer. You gave out a number of 900 rooms. Is that based on the agreed lower height? Can you still, if you follow me?
Yeah.
You're looking at, instead of the 9 floors, you're going down to 5 floors, is it?
Right.
So, I mean, does that give you the same ability
Let's just
to
vote
put
on it.
those 9?
Yeah, that was based on the density number that's set by the executive conference number of people. So just based on people on the site, that's what we would be limited to. So even if the FAR, which I think would be above that, we wouldn't be able to go to that just based on the people restriction.
So
Okay, but I guess my question still is that as opposed to going vertical, going up in the air, you're staying flat and obviously taking up more square footage on the property, okay? So,
Which is problematic
so,
in and of itself for drainage.
well, not only drainage, but I mean, how do you put, can you put if you went up 9 stories, you're gonna put a lot more people in the hotel as opposed to having something 5 stories that you're gonna have to spread out.
Right.
That's my question.
There would be a trade-off there.
And no, the additional restriction on executive conference centers, this is kind of for Jane also, of a certain number of people per room, or per, what is it, per acre of the,
18 per acre.
18 per site acre. Would that transfer over to the hotels with what we did in this restrictive covenant? Where does that come from within the zoning code, that part?
So
The
it-
18 people per site acre?
Yeah, so
Within
that
the
was,
code for executive conference centers that currently applies under the LO for their executive conference center.
It applies by definition, not.
By definition, but not in the bulk. So when we change it, or if we were to change it, would that, and it's now a hotel/conference center under the code.
Right, as a hotel, I think again, this is why if we're gonna go down this road, need more time with that, but it seems like it would be the bulk. It might not necessarily apply, but almost does.
Well, let's just vote on it.
You know, if I could just,
Jane, can you?
Chris, yeah, that number helps you to generate the bulk. If
Okay.
you understand that percentage, you have to calculate that percentage in order to even start your bulk calculations.
Okay.
Is that determines, that's the maximum amount of people you're gonna be allowed to have on this property. Whether it's a conference center or hotel. Then you look at the actual setbacks, which are restricted.
Is it whether it's conference center or hotel is my question. If it's whether it's conference center or hotel, I guess we're just talking in circles on the issue because
Correct.
it's still
It applies
So
to both
that-
uses.
Both uses.
that person, 18 people per site acre applies to hotels, conference centers, hotels/conference centers.
Correct.
To calculate yours. So when it's a hotel, if we change it to hotel, it's still the exact same 18 people per acre of the site as under executive conference.
For
centers.
everything, that you'd also have to calculate in, if you have the hotel as full, and you also have an event there, you have to calculate them, so you gotta work
Right,
that
so
math.
it's obviously not exactly a number of rooms. We're talking
Right, there's
total
nothing
people.
straightforward where you just draw a line and go, I'm
Employees,
here.
Guests that are not staying over, guests that are, at a meeting there, for classroom stuff. and then-
Caterers, the office staff,
Right,
so
so it's not like
at
literally
full
18 guests.
capacity, you're allowed that 18 per acre. And then that translates into, like, your
All I'm
bulk. So
concerned about is
capacity
that
bulk.
18 per site acre is something that still applies whether it's hotel or
Correct.
conference center. So if that's the case, then we're not changing that part, so then we have an understanding that whatever the limits are as of today will still be limits of tomorrow, whether it's a hotel or conference center, in calculating the bulk table.
That is correct, and with Jerry's question, that also led to now going into bulk requirements, because you can't go any taller, they'd have to go horizontal. They go horizontal, that now affects their drainage requirements. That affects their site parking.
Setbacks.
All your setbacks, which it even says, Rob, I think you see in the chart, that you must, for this use, you must meet your side yard setbacks.
Right.
So,
So you can't-
they
you
can only
can't
go so
break-
wide in the side yard setback,
can't get
which is
closer to the property.
150 feet each, or 350 feet total side yard. So that's pretty restrictive.
Can they get a variance on that?
The zoning board can always grant the variance.
All right.
Yeah. It was, yeah, this is probably anything we do with this stuff, the zoning board could always grant the variance, you know. But it would be kind of hard to prove a case of a variance in a property that big and flat and with enough space that you.
Correct, and especially since they're going through this review process. You know, if they go to the planning board, they're gonna say, well, you already went through this with the
I don't even
the
get the
town
planning board
board.
variances.
It'll come up, so. But there's a whole list of items that snowball
But the,
once you do the
my
bulk
question
analysis.
is, I think, addressed in that the 18 people per site acre would still be applying
Correct.
regardless. So that is our limit on number of rooms essentially, because it limits the, and that's what the limit is today and will be in the future anyway. Okay.
So I think what the town's building inspector has just said is that there are certain restrictions that have been agreed to that are really going to limit the number of additional rooms that potentially could be built there. We just went through an application, got approval for 96 rooms. We could have gone in and gotten, or requested an approval for 300 rooms if we wanted to. That was not in the plans, nor is it in the plans. I think it would be short-sighted on this board to so limit the expansion of the hotel for forever, because this covenant will run with the land and be binding on any future owners, to say, well, we can't expand it by more than X number of rooms. You know, because, you know, what's going to drive this really is the market. You know, is there going to be a market for 500, 600, 800, 900 rooms there?
I think you could fit that.
I don't think so. And it would be subject to the bulk regulations that the applicant has agreed upon. So, you know,
I understand your point, Brian, but you're saying that you don't think there's going to be a market for it, so I don't know why you wouldn't agree to a reasonable.
Because, Tom, I can't predict the future.
Neither
I'm not
can
going
I,
to
but
be
I can't-
here for another
but
10
here's the deal,
years, you know?
And that's the problem I have right now, is I can't predict the future just as you can. I'm saying, though, we can approve this, which, again, you can do whatever you want that are under the permitted uses. But you're asking us for something that's not permitted as of right. It's not permitted in the zone. You're actually asking us for a zone change. And we're telling all these people we have these restrictive covenants that are going to protect the land and run with the land and bind future owners. But what I'm trying to point out is, though, we can't, by this zone change and these restricted covenants, prevent you or a future owner from coming back to the planning board or the zoning board and asking for more units or variances on the restrictions that are under the bulk. And I just want everyone in this room to realize that.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing, and I've been trying to make it clear from the beginning. I think that most of us seem, in our discussions on the side, outside of this, understand that nothing being considered today changes what could be done beyond its current use or expanding current use under current zoning. The intent is simply to just restrict, is to restrict it to what it is in current zoning, and no more so than that, except for the hotel usage. But yeah, we're not right now looking at, you know, limiting beyond what will be limited already, because they didn't come in to get limited, and we're not. We're trying to make it succeed under its current usage, as opposed to that was the intent of this process.
We've already agreed to every one
Yeah,
of
and
the
you have agreed- and you
restrictions
were-
that the
been
town
happy to
board
agree
has
to the
suggested. And what I heard from the public, because I listened to each and every one of them, and I took notes on what they were saying, was that they support the current use. They would like to see it continue. They'd like to see the hotel succeed.
I heard a lot of people say that they want the floor area restricted. One person said, I'd like to have it.
And Tom, we've agreed to that. We've agreed
No,
to.
someone actually said, I'd like to have the number of units stay the number of units that they are right now. Right there. So, you know, I'm here because, you know what? When you come in, you know, These people that are here are gonna come back and said,
I
we thought.
welcome them, they're entitled to. It's a public meeting. If we make another application, each and every one of these people, as adjoining property owners, will receive notice of it. And they are certainly welcome to come to the planning board, and if they're concerned about a potential future expansion of the hotel, which is not in the works or even being considered right now, they have a right to comment and oppose it. I will, you know, that's a given, Tom, you know that. It's
I
a
know
public
that.
meeting, you know?
But what I know is that I can, as part of this approval, I can have restrictions that run with the land that would benefit all these people that are out here tonight.
Which we have already agreed to, and you want to add another one on top of it, you know, which, you know, I'm sorry, I don't think our client is willing to agree to that at this point.
There, in my mind, you know, one, we're gonna have to make a motion to either continue it or
Well,
to
let's
move
just
the
vote
motion,
on it.
but just, it's, you know, I think it's time where we have kind of all come to terms with where we are, and we should probably move it and then vote on it and state what our thoughts were after the public input, after the input from the applicant, and what our reasoning is, and just go from there.
No, hold on.
So, is there a motion on item 4, which is the actual amendment to the zoning law?
I'll make a motion.
Councilman Valentine, second from, I'll second. All right, on a roll call?
No.
Can't hear you.
No.
Your mic. Check your
Yes.
mic. I don't think it's-
Paul Valentine,
Yes.
Jerry Batari,
Tom, does a continuation help you if we find out?
No, Brian said his client had no inclination, so let's just vote.
Yes.
and Chris Tay.
Given the goals of keeping the current usage, I vote yes.
Do a 5-minute recess.
All right, thank you. I'm going to move for a 5-minute recess so everyone can kind of get some water and shake it off. Is there a second? Councilor Valentine, all in favor? Great, 5 minutes, 9:34, please. Way to the dais. Do we have a motion to leave recess, or?
Moved.
Moved by Councilman Divi, second from Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, I move that we open the public hearing for the Watercourse diversion permit. It's only an hour and a half after you're supposed to start, so. that's
Say better late than never.
Oh, we're still on the clock.
Oh, no, out of print.
Is there a second? Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Lino, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Supervisor Day, members of the board. Lino Sciaretta again from Montalbano, Condon, and Frank. We're here tonight, and with me is my client, Stephen Griffin. This is for a watercourse diversion permit under Chapter 41 of your code. What we're looking for tonight is to relocate, well, first of all, let me back up. This is part of the old Krieger subdivision. It's 2 lots. My client and I had the Lot 1 approved last year. There's already a home on it. This is for the second lot. That lot, as we purchased it, well, we're contracting these for, what is in the middle of that property is a ditch, and there's a 24-inch stormwater line that goes through the middle of that property. When we were developing this site plan for the board, we were at the planning board, there was some discussion going back and forth. We met with the Department of Highways, DEME. We went to the site, and we all thought, and the recommendation was, it'd be a better plan to build a single-family home here by re-diverting that existing 24-inch stormwater line, and that's what we're doing. But under your code, that requires approval from your board to divert that water course. So what we're proposing instead is to replace the 24-inch stormwater line with a 36-inch pipe, 92 feet into a riprap outlet that is away from the residence, that's the proposed residence. The problem that we had, the original plan for the house that we had there had the house less than 15 feet away from the existing 24-inch line. DEME building said it was too close. They wanted the house farther away, and that would require variances. We had Superintendent of Highways come out to the site and say, you know what, the best thing for the best plan here would be to re-divert that pipe. A, you get rid of the ditch in the middle of the property, and the future homeowner will have a yard, basically, because that stormwater line will be rerouted. Just so you know, at the planning board, with respect to this project, we did receive on September 26th, 2018, preliminary site plan approval from the planning board. And in that approval, just so you know, this was looked at by Brooker Engineering, and I'll just read the comment from the minutes, which I did provide to the town attorney for distribution to your board, but I'll just read it. Drainage review, that the sufficient detail and drainage calculation has been provided to demonstrate that potential significant impacts with respect to drainage can be mitigated, and the site plan application be approved for drainage subject to the following comments. This is also looked at by the County Department of Health, Rockland County Sewer District, and the Rockland County Drainage Agency said that really this is not even within their jurisdiction, and the permit is not even required for them because it's outside of their jurisdiction. So these were all looked at by the planning board. Again, they looked at this, they recommended preliminary site plan, so we're here tonight, hopefully, for this permit, so we can go back to the planning board for final site plan.
Okay. Are there any questions for the applicant,
Jimmy, you have anything on this, or?
or will you?
No, it's actually been reviewed and approved by engineering, by the
So just for the record, you said that it's been reviewed and approved by DEME, our engineering department. Just make sure that they. Yeah,
And
just-
the new pipe and all of the connections and everything are at their expense?
Yes.
No expense to the town? Okay.
Okay. All right, thank you, Lino. I think if there are any other questions before our in-house folks.
Thank
There
you.
was nobody signed in the back.
Yeah, I didn't see, there was no one signed in. Is there anyone here who would like to offer public comment? Yes. And when you get there, just state your name for the record and 5 minutes.
Patricia Altamar, Pearl River. The concern is, who's going to maintain those new pipes once the property is sold to whoever buys the new home that's planned to be built there? There is water. There are 2 storm drains in front of that property, which divert down through the property. There's a storm drain on the corner of Sunrise, on the south corner of Sunrise and West Norrishawn. There's a storm drain on the north corner of Sunrise and West Norrishawn. There's a lot of storm drains there. There's also a storm drain on the opposite side. There may be 2 or 3 more in that general vicinity. So most of that water, when it comes in, it's all focusing down into that area. And what's going to happen to that water in 10 or 15 years when whoever owns that property now goes to sell it, and you're a new town board, and here's a house that's been there for 20 years, and now you have water issues. Who's going to be responsible for that? Or what happens with the water that's already in the area?
Okay, thank you. So I guess, you know, who would be the person to ask about, all right, you know, currently and what you're putting in?
So we're actually, again, we're going from a 24-inch line to 36. We're actually making it better in terms of what's there now. But also, as part of the subdivision, and if I recall, one of the conditions and the reason why we involved the superintendent too is, and buildings, once this gets approved, we have to provide an easement to the town to maintain that line. It's one of the requirements for subdivision, and that's what we have to do. And that's part of the reason why we're doing what we're doing, because for future maintenance, this is going to be, again,
And they maintain the existing pipe?
that's correct. No, actually, no, I'm sorry, excuse me, the existing pipe, when there is no easement there. Part of the subdivision, when it was approved back when, required that an easement be filed. It was never done. This is
It
before.
was never actually filed, but it was
Correct,
supposed
before
to
my
be.
client was involved, right.
So there's no easement, but we technically have probably been maintaining it anyway. Okay.
Correct, but we will,
But now with an easement, the town will have the responsibility to maintain.
correct,
Okay.
and we will prepare that again with the town attorney's office to get that done.
All right, so there's already a pipe, it's 24 inches, it's in spot A. You want to move it a little bit to spot B, it's going to be a little wider. There'll be an easement for us to maintain it. It's going to go to the same place, it's just going around a little bit. to
Right,
Sunrise.
with no standing water, because currently, right now, in that yard, there's a standing water, there's a ditch. So
this
that's
is
gonna be gone.
get rid of that standing water.
Correct.
That's good. Okay. Thank you, Lino. Is there anyone else for public comment? Okay. Is there any of the departments, whether it's engineering, highway, or building, that would like to weigh in on this? Or does anyone have any questions specifically for engineering, highway, or building?
Mine were answered.
Say that again, Paul? Sorry.
Mine were answered.
Okay, good. Tom, you have any questions?
Just thinking.
Jerry?
How does this benefit the town?
I'd have as in Cherry Brook, when we
Paul, how does this
push
benefit
water
us?
down, it's not gonna cause any problems down the road.
Other
That's
than
all.
them putting in a bigger.
That's a fair question. I assume, so we've done the
What's the
drainage study,
density?
Eamon
Now we
or
have to maintain
Jim,
any.
whoever would know that better.
We have to maintain it now, but we didn't have an
All right, so it doesn't really do anything.
easement. No.
It's not increasing flow.
Okay, so it's just moving it, and it's not causing any water problems
Just
down the road?
rerouting it, no change of flow
Okay,
calculations.
that's fine.
Okay,
Thanks, Sam.
okay. All right, if there's no other questions or comments, then I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Batari, all in favor?
All right.
Okay, do I have a motion on item 7 to approve the proposal for watercourse diversion permit, given the review that has occurred from zoning and such? Councilman Batari, second from Councilman Valentine. All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on. We already did 8, I left a post-it note. We're on to 16. 16, thank you. Item 16, page 12. This is the resolution to replace the parking meter map of downtown Pearl River with a new version, which you will see up on the screen there. Effectively, the summarized changes are as workshopped previously. The 30-minute zone, which was created by the town board in January to apply to generally where it's overlaid on this map, is now overlaid on this map where it hadn't been. So we created the zone, but we never put it anywhere before. The EV spots that are going to be reflected in the zone, in the resolution we will pass subsequent to this, are reflected 2 EV spots, which are 2-hour time limit, just like the 3 remaining non-EV spots next to Bronsdorf. And then the taxi stand, which, again, we have taxi stand in the code, so we can't actually designate it. It's just the code, for some reason, doesn't set any rules or define what a taxi is. It just says taxis can be in a taxi zone, but non-taxis can't. So we have the ability to set it on the other side across by the train station. Along with this, we have that public hearing to do the one-way in that section between the train station and Bronsdorf, but that's not applying in this case. This is just the map for the parking related to all these changes. So, guys, do you have anything, especially, again, for drawing in the focus? We can change anything on the map. Again, this is the whole downtown Pearl River, but drawing in the focus on the 30 minutes especially, are we all comfortable with that being where they're going to be? It's getting rid of, and I'll go back to the original, if I can. I don't think this is on. Oh, it is off. There we go. This is the current. So you can see down here, you have over here the 2-hour, and you have 1 2-hour and 1 15-minute. Then you have 1 2-hour, 1 15-minute. So I can't really see from this distance. It looks like, I think it's 3 in front of the antique shop, or 2 or 3 spots that are 2-hour. And then you have a couple that are flipping from 15-minute to half-hour, and a couple flipping on either side of it, and a couple flipping from 2-hour to half-hour in addition. So it goes from, basically, we're losing 2 15 minutes, and we're losing like 5 2-hours, and they're being replaced with the equivalent number of 30 minutes. Does anyone have any thoughts on that, or are they good? Are you all just not in agreement, or?
No, so in front of the antique shop,
That'll be 30.
what did he end up with, 2 30s?
He had asked for the 30s, and that's what he ends up with, as intended when we passed the zone.
Okay,
We're just slightly expanding it around the corner to make it a little less of sort of like a spot randomly, because I guess the logic of that spot applies also to these areas here, too, when
Yeah.
you think about it. So rather than just doing, and it's also,
This is the same map we had at the work.
this is the current, no changes from last week, yeah. And then, okay, and then the EV is the EV, and the taxi stand is the taxi stand. And nothing else has changed on this map from the old one.
And you put no parking in front of Divany's place?
I put anyone but Tom Divney parking is right here.
fine.
Okay.
I'm
All right,
gonna
so
park in those EV spots.
you can, because right now we have it that anyone can park there. And you could put a big sign that says not EV, and you can't do anything.
I'm just gonna, even on my days off,
Even if you're just gonna drive over and
I'm
leave
gonna
the car
take
there.
the top off
and walk back.
my Jeep Wrangler and just sit there with sunblock on.
2 hours, though. It's a 2-hour limit.
I
You
have,
gotta feed the meter.
I'll put the quarters in, I always
All
do.
right, good. All right, so is there a motion for the map on number 16?
I'll make a
Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. I'm looking for someone here. All right, then we have number 17 to designate the spots for the Spark Hill and Pearl River EV spots. This is just designating them. The next one is the rules. Is there a motion? Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Batari, Councilman Divney. Councilman Divney with a second, since he verbalized it. All in favor? All right. Next is setting the regulations for the EV spots. We're all good with as is. We had corrected the correct charge per kilowatt hour so that it reflects what we pay plus a bit of profit, so we can apply that towards, any maintenance required. Everyone good? Is there a motion?
Yep.
Councilman Divney with the motion. Is there a second? Councilman Valentine, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. Then we have the memorializing resolution for digitization of Orangetown records to set us on a timeline and begin a digitization process. Is there a motion on this one?
Moved.
Councilman Divney, second from Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. To that end, by the way, there was one we workshopped related to the systems we're going to be implementing, but there were some edits in getting the two different systems in place and putting in the right budget lines, so that's going to get pushed over to November. We workshopped it last week, but it's going to be edited a bit and be done in November, in case anyone's wondering where that went. Resolution to approve the lease for the agreement with Toshiba Copier. This actually saves us about $15,000, $18,000 a year in copier services, depending on our usage. So good work all around there. Is there a motion?
Moved.
Councilman Divney, second from Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution to accept, receive, file documents at Town Clerk's office. Is there a motion?
Moved.
Divney, second by Councilman Valentine, all in favor?
Aye.
Sewer registration certificates.
Moved.
Divney, second by Valentine, all in favor?
Aye.
Approve lit tort settlement for $30,000. There a motion?
Moved.
Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
Reclassify clerk typist based on the results of a desk audit. Is there a motion?
Yep.
Councilman Divney, second from Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
Accept a grant from the Justice Department related to the opioid abuse. It's $300,000. Is there a motion?
8.
Councilman Divney, second from Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye. We missed one. We missed
Did it? Oh, 25. Going back to 25, appoint Elizabeth DeCourt to the position we just created. That would have been a bit of a miss. Is there a motion? Councilman Divney, Councilman Valentine, second Councilman Batari, all in favor? Again, also this is the clerk typist. We had talked about changing the grades around for this one on 27. Is there a motion?
Here.
Councilman Divney, second Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
Appoint Elena Walker as our parking enforcement aide part-time. Is there a motion? Councilman Batari, second from Councilman Valentine, all in favor?
Sure.
Resolution authorized submission of grant for the $14,000 for the Justice Court. Is there a motion?
Justice, yes.
Councilman Divney, second from Councilman Batari, all in favor? Approve share Christmas and holidays, Brownsdorf Park. Is there, that would be from Divney, second from Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
To clarify the name that it is in fact Elwyn Street, not Elwyn Avenue. Is there a motion?
That's why I've been getting lost all this time. Yes.
Street and Avenue thing was getting me. It could get you on Washington, though. Like Washington Street and Avenue end up in two different ends of the pen. Valentine, second from Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
Adopt a road for Mountain View Avenue.
Carlucci?
Ms. Senator Carlucci. Is there a motion? Councilman Batari, second from Councilman Valentine, all in favor?
Jerry has to support code.
It's a bipartisan vote to support his support of our roads. Donation of a memorial bench in memory of Lynn and Sam Jacobs at Tappan Memorial Park. Is there a motion?
Move.
Councilman Divney, Councilman Batari with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Another lending of aid for the Share Christmas event. Is there a motion? Divney, second from Councilman Valentine. All in favor?
Together.
Grant permission for training at the cost of $365 for John Wintersteiger. Is there a motion?
Yep.
Councilman Divney, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor? Award bid for electricity supply at 4.6 cents per kilowatt hour. Is there a motion?
Paul.
Valentine, second from Batari. All in favor? Adjust the budget.
Adjust it.
Motion.
Moved.
Divney, second. Batari. All in favor? Tax certiorari. Not too bad for us. The school's getting hit kind of hard. Is there a motion?
See.
Councilman Divney, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor? All right. Before we get to the audit, I'm going to skip around to this new business item so we can do that and then finish on audit. This is just setting the public hearings that we kind of skipped last time for November 8th for the budget, library, and Blauville Fire Protection District. Motion on the library one.
Motion to consolidate all three.
Second, all in favor of consolidating all three and voting as a whole. Second, okay. All in favor of that?
Here, here.
Okay, good. All three are approved. Moving on to audit.
Tonight's audit consists of 7 warrants for $2.037 million. First warrant had 2 vouchers for $361 and was for utilities. Second warrant had 1 voucher for $300 and was for insurance at the museum. The third warrant was 40 vouchers for $94,000 and was for utilities. Fourth warrant had 22 vouchers for $1.1 million. Items of interest, 1 and 2. Applied Golf, 2 contracts. Number 4, CSA Employee Benefit Fund, $31,000 for dental benefits. Number 5, Hauser, $78,000 for boiler replacement. That was bonded. Number 8, Department of Civil Service, $760,000 for CSEA Healthcare. Fifth warrant had 16 vouchers for $161,000, was for utilities. Sixth warrant had 1 voucher for $582, was for an insurance policy. The seventh warrant had 308 vouchers for $658,000. Items of interest, number 12, Capasso, $48,000 for recycling. 17, Global Montello, $42,000 for fuel. Number 21, Lochner Engineering, $35,000 for sidewalks. Number 28, Rockland County Department of Health, $40,000 for the animal control contract. Number 29, Sprague, $28,000 for fuel. Number 30, the Comptroller, $42,000 for justice fines. And number 32, Tilcon, $66,000 for highway materials. Any
Okay.
questions on the audit?
Questions on the audit?
How do you
None.
determine which ones are of interest? I just want to know.
What's
I'm doing the higher dollar
'Cause I
ones.
always try to like mark which ones I think you'll have of interest. I was off by 2 tonight.
You got how many right?
He was wrong by 2.
I
okay.
had
You
11
2
or
more or 2
12.
less?
I had 2 less.
Okay.
You got to get a little more focused on what you're interested in. That's the takeaway. Is there a motion on the audit?
Moved.
Councilman Divney, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor? We have one more motion before we adjourn. The declaration of lead agency and to set the public hearing for the noise code amendments. That the edits on that didn't get in until after the agenda was printed. It's the separate sheet here. Is there a motion to set the public hearing? Did we vote on the setting of the public hearing already? We just didn't do it on this.
I'm sorry, which one, noise?
Noise, yeah. All I see here is the secret.
All right, move.
No, we set the public hearing and then circulation.
Move to set the public hearing.
That's going to be on, set the public hearing for November 27th at 8:15 p.m. Moved by Councilman Divney, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor?
Here, here.
Declaration of intention for lead agency pursuant to secret. Is there a motion?
Moved.
Councilman Divney, second from Councilman Valentine. All in favor?
Here, here.
All right. Do we have anyone to adjourn in memory of? I didn't catch anyone this week. No? Okay. I therefore move that we enter executive session. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
We adjourn in favor of the New York Giants?
They did die. We'll get it. We'll do it the next time. All right, so I move that we enter executive session to discuss personnel and
There's 2 litigation matters I want to
Litigation.
discuss there. Oh.
and land sales. Is there, and then immediately adjourn thereafter. Is there a second on that motion? Councilman Batari, all in favor? Great.
Hold on.
Wait.
Did it get up there?
I didn't see it on there, no.
All right, so,
All right. We did, I saw it. We all saw it. All right. I'm going to go ahead, we're going to hold that motion. I withdraw my motion to adjourn. And and you say we're not adjourning yet. And it's not written down in front of us right now.
No, there was a,
I
it
saw
was
it.
distributed, yeah.
It was
the-
distributed, it didn't make the agenda.
all right, make a motion to
Right,
vote.
we've distributed it,
All right.
and everybody has it on
move
the sexual harassment
The
policy.
motion regarding sexual harassment, adopting the sexual harassment policy as so recommended by the town attorney's office and circulated previously. We can touch up that language.
Yeah, we'll provide some
afterwards.
language to Rosanna.
I second.
Second by Council Divney, all in favor?
About time.
I reinstate my motion to move to executive session and thereafter adjourn. And you reinstate your second, all in favor? Great, thank you very much.